right through a channel of light fluid. Welcome back to the Arctic. Welcome back to Polar Night. And if you remember the last episode, we've discovered the ship we're in search of. But there's something very, very strange going on. And we have possibly lost some of the crew. What more are we going to discover here? Let's read on. We made our way as rapidly as we could down the suffocatingly narrow stairs into the deck below, as quickly as we could without risking slipping on the icy steps. I squeezed the screwdriver tightly. It felt so small, so pathetic against something like a proper knife. Arran had probably had the better idea with the hammer. But regardless, it offered some small amount of reassurance. We hurried through the darkness, shadows dancing as our torches passed over open doorways, toppled boxes and trolleys and detritus hanging from the ceiling. Oh, wait, stop. I skidded to a stop, then leaned over, hands on my knees as I struggled to catch my breath. Arran did so too, though he kept glancing around, flashing his torch to and fro. Where are you taking us? Do you have any idea where you're going? He wheezed out, but never taking his eyes off the corridors, both the way we came and what lay ahead. I don't. If I weren't about to throw up from fear and exertion, I don't think I'd answer. I'd run on instinct, back towards the main deck. From there we'd have the choice of where to look, but... Before I could say anything more, there was the sound of a metal door clanging open, and a sudden inrush of frigid wind. The sound of the blizzard outside came from a soar up ahead, and for a brief moment, a corridor leading to our right lit up slightly from the scant moonlight. Then it clanged shut again, and silence followed. I felt his hands grab my torch and flick it off, along with his own. Then he wrestled me to the right side wall, placing a finger on my lips to shush me. I hissed a protest, but then I heard steps. Slow. Methodical. He looked at me with terror, imploring me with his eyes to return the way we came. I hesitated. If it was one of the others, why couldn't we see their torchlight? Why weren't they calling out? And since I could only detect one set of paw steps, why were they alone? I gripped the screwdriver tighter, then looked Arran in the eye. He swallowed, looking down at the hammer in his hand and back at me. Fuck, my ears were ringing. Or buzzing? My heart felt like an alien trying to explode through my ribcage. My mouth was dry, fingers numb, tail curled upwards. The fear and gnawing knot in my stomach gave way to heat. Anger. I jerked my head towards the oncoming steps and motioned him to prepare the hammer. He stared wide-eyed and mouthed something, but I ignored him. He grabbed my wrist, but I yanked it out of his grasp. We approached the corner, gripping our flimsy but potentially lethal weapons. Why should I be afraid? I bared my teeth. Wherever it was, they wouldn't take me like Joseph. As the figure moved closer, I got the impression the steps were less methodical and more staggering. There's the sound of something metallic getting hit against something soft. And just as the figure cleared the corner, there was a flicker of light. I lunged. My speed and the element of surprise allowed me to easily force the figure against the wall. A thick haze clouded my brain. Fury, somewhere deep down, was roiling. It felt muted, like touching your gum after dental anaesthesia. I knew it was there, but also barely registered. Sensing the upper hand, I felt an urge to pounce and stab with my screwdriver, put this threat down now while I had the chance. The fuck? Garrett, stop, for fuck's sake! My eyes slamped shut as a bright light shone in my face. Garrett, put it fucking down, right now! Before me was the tigress. Though there was fear in her eyes, her teeth were bared in outrage. My eyes glanced to my right hand. The screwdriver was inches from her face, while my left hand clutched her throat. And then my entire abdomen was in agony, pain swooping up through my chest and taking with it any air I had in my lungs. I was only vaguely aware she effortlessly swept my pores. Her hand clenched my throat and my entire world spun. The floor rushed up to meet me as I folded inwards and clutched my belly. "You fucking prick!" I heard motion around me, boots stepping dangerously close to my face. I couldn't even begin to care. All I could think of was trying to get my lungs to reinflate. "Dana, wait, we thought..." "Don't fucking touch me! He tried to stab me, you saw him!" Arran lapsed into silence, leaving the pair of them staring down at me. I felt like my guts were twisting. I wheezed, trying to suck in air. "Thankful I didn't aim lower, fucking butt." "Dana, Jesus, this isn't the time. We thought you were the killer." "Why the fuck would you think that?" Why didn't you leave your light on?" "That's your fucking reason? This piece of shit flashlight wasn't working. You'd have called out." "But we heard a scream. Didn't you hear it?" "A scream? Where? When?" "A few minutes back. We don't know where. It's a woman, maybe Tabby or Gail." I wheezed a soft groan and tried to speak. All that came out was a whisper. That seemed to remind them I was here, in agony, on the cold metal floor. "Here, help me." "Oh, let him lie there. It's like I only gut-punched him." "Where are the others? I thought you were searching together." "I got separated in the blizzard. I thought I saw... someone." "Who? Joseph?" "No, it doesn't matter. We should check on Tabby and Gail." I turned to look up at her, seeing her lip quiver in unconcealed contempt. "I'm sorry," I squeaked out, trying to push myself to my knees, and my lungs finally allowed me to take in some air. After another pause, she tutted, felt two pairs of arms under my armpits hold me up to my paws. "If you ever try something like that again..." The tip of the screwdriver touched my nose. I swallowed as I met her eyes. She absolutely was not fucking around. "I'm keeping this." She slipped in her pocket and folded her arms, daring me to challenge her. Of course I wasn't going to. Jesus, what got into me? I nearly... Arran turned, beckoning us to follow. Though Dana cast one last frustrated look back towards the exterior door, she growled before following me and Arran. The sprint to the bowels of the ship wasn't easy thanks to patches of ice. I nearly slid down the set of stairs if Arran hadn't caught my arm. The darkness pressed in around, so we were no longer in corridors with windows. Only our torch beams gave any light. I heard cursing and the slapping of metal against glove as Dana's torch flickered again. My teeth clenched at the thought of my own torch failing. By the time we arrived near the engine room, we slowed and finally stopped. The door leading to the machinery was ajar, and a warm light could be seen shining like a beacon in the dark. But there were no sounds, no voices. We exchanged looks. Arran swallowed audibly, and I heard his paw tapping rapidly. On the other hand, if Dana was afraid, she hid it well. Her jaw clenched and her tail swished, but she kept her gaze fixed firmly on the door. "Tabby? Gail? Is anyone there? We heard a scream." I cursed my trembling voice. I did everything I could to stop my hand shaking. "Why isn't anyone answering?" He hissed in a frantic whisper. Dana clenched her torch and turned to us. "Okay." I could see the haunted look in her eye. There was an unsettling gleam, too. She was a detective, after all. This was probably her day job. Or maybe I watched too many movies. "Garrett, you smell anything?" I swallowed hard so my throat closed up. I was so dehydrated it made me briefly forget the gnawing hunger. The air was damp and musty, which was to be expected. The cold sliced my nostrils and sinuses. Traces of grease and lubricants. Nothing out of the ordinary for a room full of machines. I braced myself for a trace of the sickly metallic scent I was familiar with. Anything I recognised. The stench of terror from at least one of my companions was almost overpowering. I glanced at Dana and shook my head. Arran stared at us wide-eyed, ears erect. After a moment he also shook his head. Dana inhaled sharply. She gestured, and slowly we approached the door. The room was painted to oily black shadow from the various hulking metal derelicts. In the centre, a solitary lantern was sitting on the floor, emitting a soft hiss. "Gail? Tabby?" There was no sign of blood or of a struggle, as far as I could see. Tools lay on the floor. None of them had the dust and the frost that covered everything else, so I assumed they'd been in use until recently. "Tabby? Gail? Rufus?" She called out again, the fear rising in her voice. Where the fuck did they go? His torchbeam was shaking wildly, darting this way and that, creating shadows that morphed and stretched across the room. "Oh, calm down," she hissed at him, but it was clear she was getting agitated too. Their voices were hushed, as though scared someone or something might overhear. "All right, Garrett, go around that way and check the turbines. Arran, you go up that way between those... Are you seriously suggesting we split up? Again? This room is huge. Take us long to search in one group. What's your rush? Do you have an urgent luncheon appointment to dash off to? Did you or did you not claim to hear a fucking scream? Guys. I held up my hand to shush them. My ears turned back and forth, straining to hear. There was only the groaning of metal and dripping of water. Arran, can you hear anything? Anyone? I promise you, if I'd heard someone, you'd know it as soon as I did. Well, I can't smell anything unusual. So I don't think there's been any violence here. I also can't smell Tabby or Gail, so maybe they left? What about Rufus? He's supposed to be with them. Aye, but we heard a woman scream. So unless Rufus can really hit those high notes, I doubt it was him. So then where is he? I shivered as I turned and passed my torchbeam over the metal hulks and ruined electronics. Seeing it now, I realised how futile Tabby's efforts would have been. Garrett? Tabby was right. A place like this is at least as much electrical as mechanical, and I wouldn't know how to even begin to restore power, assuming it's even possible. So, there's no chance to get power for the radio. Listen, one thing at a time. We need to find the others and make sure everyone is safe. You all exchanged looks, but nodded. Despite her attitude, I was glad Dana was with us. Look, I'll go over there like Dana said. Arran, you stick with Dana. But... do you really want to argue about this? She gave Arran a dirty look, but he's too busy staring frightfully around, ears erected and alert for the slightest noise. I was surprised his foot wasn't hammering a hole in the floor right now. Fuck it, fine. Stay close. And Garrett... She gave me a grim look. If you find anyone or anything, shout. As loud as you can and don't stop till we get to you, okay? I swallowed. I tried to say okay, but my words caught in my throat and I simply nodded. Why did I have to act brave? I moved around the bank of electrical panels and started moving cautiously towards the rear of the compartment. From the other side I could hear Dana and Arran calling out in harsh semi-whispers. My throat ached. I was parched and my belly twisted and writhed with hunger. My hands shook. I needed a smoke. I still hadn't completely recovered from the blow Dana had given me. I kept sniffing as I stepped toward the rear of the room, navigating through the long stretches between banks of equipment and machines. The stench of blood from the bridge still lingered in the back of my mind, even if it had faded from my clothes and fur. I was braced for the hit of iron and death. The light of the lantern was distant now. My torch trembled in my hand. I called out, but softly. Something warned me that I really shouldn't be attracting attention to myself. Tabby? Gail? My head was beginning to pound and my vision was getting blurry. The inky blackness pressed in on me like the waters of the Arctic had nearly drowned in me hours before, suffocating me. I had to get out. I had to leave. A spark of anger ignited in me at Dana for splitting up, and for hitting me. Who the fuck did she think she was? My chest vibrated with a growl. My hand clenched the torch tightly, its hefty metal weight reassuring me it could easily cause a lot of damage if wielded as a weapon. Dana, where are you? Did you find anything? I hissed, still keeping my voice down. I swept the room around me with my light, suddenly overcome with paranoia and dread. Dana? Arran? This time I shouted, panic pushing my voice up an octave. No, they couldn't be missing. Not again. My head was in agony now. I couldn't see straight. I couldn't think straight. God fucking damn it. I will fucking kill you two if you're fucking with me. That mosquito from before was back, drilling into my skull. I covered my ears and screwed my eyes shut. Every synapse in my brain felt like they were on fire. Take me home. I want to go home. Cold. Echoes. Swirling light and crushing dark. Where? Motion around me. Corridor. Walls were pushing past me, crates and detritus moving by. Everything swayed, stopping and starting. I was walking somewhere. Home? What? Why here? It was open. Something was telling me not to go in. Warning. Threatening. Garrett. My legs failed. I crumbled to my knees. I retched, but I had nothing to bring up. My head was in agony, like something was burrowing into it. I wasn't alone. Someone was here, coming closer. Stay away. Then the world turned onto its side. The last thing I saw were boots and legs that stretched up and out of my sight. And I didn't recognize them. I stared at my bedside clock. 11:43 p.m. I could still hear them downstairs. Every once in a while a lull. Mum's voice, trying to soothe them. Each time I dared to allow my eyes to close. Maybe they worn themselves out finally. Maybe Mum had gotten them to put it on hold for tonight. Again. But then a harsh shout followed by a response and it started back up again. Even upstairs behind my closed bedroom door, I could hear from their voices they were both drunk again. For Clyde, this was mostly his default state. But for Connor... 11:48. I couldn't hear the specifics. Only a brief word here and there. But then again, I didn't care. Connor. He'd had a rough time. Clyde had gotten worse in his own drinking, and Connor had ditched the smoking habit, only to replace it with beer. At first it had been drinks with friends after work. It was pretty clear he didn't want to be around Clyde, so he stayed out late, coming back smashed only to find Clyde still up, and, as was his habit, looking for an argument. I jolted as I heard a final shout, then the sounds of paw steps thundering up the stairs. I snapped my eyes shut, my nerves on edge as I prepared for someone to barge in. But no one did. I heard Connor's bedroom door slam. From downstairs I heard Mum and Clyde talking. Or at least Mum was talking and Clyde was still shouting. A poisonous burst of resentment flooded me. He'd wormed his way into our lives to her. Her multiple sclerosis was getting worse. Her ability to work was becoming harder. We needed support and Clyde had a stable job. I'd never understood. Clyde was superficially charming, so her persona was breathtakingly fake if you knew him at all. I'd seen the sweet, jovial, chummy facade turn on and off like a light switch. And once he got what he wanted, he was a pure 100% grade AAA Garrett. I slammed my eyes shut and slowed my breathing as much as I could. Silence. Then he called out to me again. Still quiet, almost a whisper. Even just saying my name, I could hear the drunkenness. I hated it. Soft paw steps crossed my room. Paused, and I heard something placed next to me on my bedside table. I think this is better off with you, wee man. The steps retreated and paused at the door. I had a sudden urge to open my eyes, to speak to him. Then the soft click of my bedroom door and the noise from downstairs became muffled again. I opened my eyes, and instantly my gaze was drawn by a shiny object, glinting in the soft green light of my alarm clock. No, it couldn't be. I reached for it, feeling the cold metal and grasping it tightly. Grandpa's lighter. I couldn't resist. I flipped the top and struck. Instantly it sparked into life. As expected, it never once failed when Connor used it. But why would he just give it up? I slid open the drawer and placed it carefully inside. Maybe I'd borrow a cigarette off of Connor, if he still had one. Or maybe a work colleague, just to try it out. Just the one cigarette. Garrett. The bright light stung my eyes, even through my eyelids. Was it morning already? Felt like I'd only just fallen asleep. Garrett. Fuck off. Yeah, nice to see you too, wee man. My eyes snapped open, the warm glow of a lantern briefly overwhelmed my vision. A figure was sitting nearby in a chair by the desk. The hospital. How had I gotten here? And who lit this lantern? The figure stood, approaching. Too tall to be Arran or Stefan. Too thin for Rufus or Sharif. You look like shit, wee man. I knew that tone. Infuriatingly smug and mocking. But my heart clenched nonetheless as memories came flooding back. Still a skinny wee rake, I see. I tried to sit up. My body ached and I winced. Well, calm down. You're in a pretty dire state. I felt his hands on me, holding me firmly to stop me rolling off the bed. And for the first time I properly looked at him. Connor? He stood at the side of the bed, so close I could smell him. His scent was laden, the stench of... I wasn't sure exactly, but it was unpleasant. Grease, iron, sweat. But it was him. He was wearing a set of work clothes like an engineer, or rather a mechanic. And all things considered, they seemed in decent condition. He gestures next to me where an open can stood with a spork next to it. A can of meat. Get up. You're one missed meal from becoming invisible. He gave me his signature cheeky toothy grin. I stared back and forth between my brother and the food. A six-lane pileup of questions blocked up my brain. And then I felt my stomach twist in hunger, and I grabbed the can, shoving the spork in and grabbing a chunk of the food and shoving it into my gob. It was real meat in some kind of gravy or sauce. The sort of stuff you'd keep in the back of a cupboard for a rainy day. The sort of thing dirt poor students would only touch if they had nothing else. It smelled disgusting. Not enough flavour and stone cold. Without heat, it had the texture and consistency of oily, jelly-covered rubber. And yet, ravenous as I was, it might as well be the most glorious thing I'd ever eaten. Good, eh? I paused mid-bite to stare at him. He looked fine. Gaunt, much thinner than I remember. There was a haggardness to him, but the spark in his eyes reminded me of old times. Does that hurt? He motioned to my face, my eye. Suddenly he couldn't meet my gaze. He shuffled awkwardly with his paws. The final gift he'd left me before abandoning us. I sniffed at the spork for the can stop into my muzzle and finally spoke. You're not real. It was a statement of fact. He couldn't be. My eyes darted at the door, the bed next to me, for signs this was a dream. He shrugged, then made a gesture with his hands. Trust me, I wish I wasn't. His smirk faded as he tried to meet my eyes again. I was familiar with when people avoided my facial disfigurement while trying to maintain eye contact. They fixated on my right eye, but no one could resist occasionally glancing at the left. My fringe had been brushed aside while I was asleep. If you are real, then tell me how you're still alive. Why I haven't seen you until now. He swallowed, looking away. Even though I didn't believe he was really here, and my mind seemed to be glossing over why I'd seen him regardless, I felt a pang of satisfaction. I don't know. Fuck right off. Don't know why I'm seeing you. Maybe I'm dead or having a stroke or going insane from the cold. A flash of anger crossed his muzzle and he stiffened, standing up from his chair. A brief flutter of fear went through me. Thinner though he was, he still had half a foot on me and likely 30 to 40 pounds in weight. He had been an athlete after all, and his job on the Arran had been a physical one. But then, part of me realised fear was unnecessary. He wasn't really here. I don't fucking know, alright? I woke up a wee while ago. I was on... He started a pace while I just continued shoveling the meat glop into my muzzle, though I never once took my eye off him. A tween deck, I think. How can you not know where you woke up? This was your fucking ship. I don't. He started bellowing at me, then cast a furtive glance at the door and lowered his voice to a hiss. No! He stepped closer, fists clenched. Real or not, I felt a surge of fright. I knew how volatile he could be. He quickly calmed, seemingly realising his reaction was scaring me, and he sagged, looking defeated. I don't know what to tell you, wee man. I don't remember much. The ship, it was falling apart. The crew, at least. I think Dr. Waters. He gave a frustrated growl and stomped away toward the door. She wanted me for something. A mission. I had to go somewhere. No. He turned, not looking at me, rather at his own hands as he seemingly recalled some vague memory. I had to take something somewhere. He paused for a moment, froze in place, while letting out a frustrated snarl. Fucking Christ, why can't I remember? Something about his behaviour cracked my conviction he was a fantasy or a hallucination. His behaviour was so... Connor. I observed him as I scarfed down another mouthful of the disgusting flesh gloop. Could he actually be? Mum texts you every day, by the way. He froze, turning to look at me. He looked genuinely alarmed. She does? Every single day. Hasn't stopped for the past 5 years. Wee man, I didn't... My blood boiled and a primal snarl escaped my chest. My lips peeled back, baring my teeth. Don't fucking call me that. I'm not a wee boy anymore. And if I was, you'd be the last fucking cunt to take it from. He seemed genuinely taken aback. Surprise turned grim and he looked away, suddenly very interested in something off in the corner of the room. I'd have thought finally getting to give him a piece of my mind would feel better. Took all my willpower not to launch into a tirade, to demand he explain himself, not about the Arran, but about us. But all I felt was empty. Some small part of me even felt guilt. How is she? Mum? Oh, she doesn't put up with Clyde anymore. Oh, really? She kicked his ass out. He brightened up. I threatened to do to him what he did to me after he went too far one night. He never came back and we never bothered to look. There's a little bit more to the story than that. I didn't have the energy, or frankly the desire to relive that particular night just for Connor's sake. He gave me a look that was a mix between astonishment and joy. That's really a fucking amazing week, Garrett. That's something I should have done long ago. I said nothing. I took another bite of the meat and continued to glare at him. Listen, I haven't met the others, and if you value his safety or mine, you won't tell them about me. Why the fuck not? Do you have any idea what your survival means? To them? Garrett, in case you've not been paying attention. He glanced furtively at the door, lowering his voice. One of your new pals is a murderer. You're talking about Joseph? Is that his name? The bald guy, yeah. Did you see anything? Hear anything? I heard you screaming your head off. That was when I realised there were people on board. I was going to introduce myself, but then I saw the bridge. You were there? I was there after you left, but before he'd brought the tiger and shark lassies. I was speechless. I stared him down, but there was no trace of his grin. He watched me back with piercing eyes. I've been waiting for a moment to get you alone so I could talk to you. This was the best, or rather the only moment I've had so far. But, so... Of course, the obvious question. The one we came out here to find the answer to. What happened on this ship? He opened his mouth to speak, then the sound of raised voices came through the open door. He stood rapidly, tensing and glancing around. I have to go. I'll find you again, but remember, do not say anything about me. He hissed the last warning before dashing for the door and vanishing into the dark corridor. Connor, wait! I stood, wincing, my legs and arms still felt stiff, ran as quickly as I could for the door. Just as the figure appeared. Oof! I blinked as I realised I'd rammed into her just as she reached the door. Garrett, are you okay? What are you shouting for? Gail, Her eyes met mine, full of concern. I couldn't imagine Gail being a danger, and part of me wanted to trust her. But something about the way Connor's voice had broken when he gave me his parting warning gave me pause. It'd been the first time I could think of I'd heard that particular tone from him. Genuine fear. Nothing. I woke from a dream and forgot where I was for a moment. I winced as I saw in her eyes that she didn't believe a word I said. Maybe I should take acting lessons so I don't make an arse of myself every time I try to lie. She pulled off a glove and placed a hand on my forehead, instantly causing me to blush under my fur. Oh, the scream. Yeah, Arran and I heard... I know. I'm sorry, Garrett. It was Tabby. She panicked and Rufus wandered off. I think she's embarrassed, so please don't bring it up, okay? Her pleading eyes melted me immediately. Are you sure you're okay? Where is everyone? Suddenly reminded of the missing people, I gripped her shoulders and stared into her eyes. Did Dana and Arran in the mess hall with Tabby? We don't know where anyone else is. They're still missing. How long was I out cold? I don't know. Garrett, you're hurting me. I blinked, confused. Then I saw the fear in her eyes with dawning horror, and realized I'd been gripping her shoulders tighter and tighter without realizing. I released her quickly, holding up my hands. Sorry. She rubbed her shoulder and stared at me, a new expression on her face. It wasn't a pleasant one. We should meet up with the others. We need to figure out what to do. She stared me down a moment more before finally cracking a small smile. Yes, okay. Guilt threatened to boil over. What the fuck was wrong with me? First Dana, now Gail. It was this place. It was setting my teeth on edge. She handed me a torch and led the way. Our walk to the mess hall was silent. The usual cheeriness was gone. I noticed her flashing a torch beam urgently down passageways and into doorways as we passed. Scared something was lurking. Ready to jump out, maybe? I couldn't judge. I was doing the same. Oh, by the way... She stopped and lowered her voice, glancing furtively about. It's about Dana. I grimaced. Her Dana told her about how I almost stabbed her with a screwdriver. She found a bottle of whiskey. She's been hitting it hard, too. My heart fell. She'd not exactly been subtle about her fondness for booze back on the Sylvia. Is she causing problems? No, not... I mean, she's not getting into fights or anything, just... I don't know. She got separated from Arran around the same time you did. Arran doesn't know what got into her, but by the time me and Tabby found her in the mess hall, she was already drinking. Bad memories came flooding back. I hated alcohol. Even the smell alone was enough to make me gag. Well, thanks for telling me. I'm not sure what you want me to do about it. Just warning you. She seems content to just sit. But if you speak to her, be careful. She didn't need to tell me to be careful around drunks. My eyes stung, causing me to blink. Oh no, it's your eye. I'm fine. I pulled my bottle of Diclo out and squeezed a drop into my eye. As expected, the cool liquid soothed the pain somewhat, but I needed to wait for it to kick in. Gail gave me a sympathetic look and led the way to the mess hall. Tabby and Arran were both sitting at different tables. Tabby was hugging herself, face wet with tears and swaying back and forth slightly. Gail immediately dashed to her side. Arran was pouring an open can of food. Judging by how easily it slid across the table and the way the metal utensil poking out of it rattled around, it was empty. Then I saw Dana. She's sitting at a small table off in the corner, her back to the rest of the room. Her shoulders were hunched and her tail was limp and motionless. Gail looked up from comforting Tabby to meet my eyes. She nervously glanced at Dana, then back at me. I wasn't sure if she was asking me to speak to her or warning me not to. I knew how volatile a drunk could be. I needed to check on her, see if I could talk her into putting the booze away, at least for now. Not that I ever succeeded at that. Dana didn't look at me when I approached. I grimaced as she took up the bottle. Some kind of whiskey, as Gail had said, and necked it. The familiar tinny noise of liquid sluicing around the glass was joined by her audible gulp. Christ, this is all I needed. If Dana got violent, I wouldn't stand a chance. My stubby lupine claws might as well be plastic spoons compared to hers. I'd already seen how capable Dana was in a physical confrontation. I wasn't convinced her being half cut would be enough of an advantage to me. Not to mention the screwdriver she's confiscated. I paused a moment, working myself up to finally... I'll offer you some, but you don't drink. I blinked in surprise. She turned her head ever so slightly to address me. I saw something I'd never expected from her in a million years. She was crying. It was awful too, Scotch. I thought it right, to be honest. Yes, crap. This Lafroig. Of course it was, Clyde's favourite. I could smell it wafting off her. The smoky scent he'd found irresistible, but always just made me think something was burning. Lafroig. She sounded it out in a slurred, awkward way, like a child learning a new word. Tastes like you scraped the bottom of a barbecue and mixed the burnt charcoal with turpentine. She was quiet a moment, then snickered, raising the bottle clumsily into a faux salute. Beggars can't be choosers. I chanced getting closer, moving slightly to one side so I could see her face better. Where did you find it? I tried to keep my voice even, hoping my apprehension wasn't coming through. In a cabin. You were looking around the cabins? Why? I thought... Dad's cabin. Captain McGregor's cabin. That was near the bridge. How far and long had she wandered? How long had I actually been out? She loudly gulped from the bottle again, and I winced. Her voice was slightly slurred, but there was a real bitterness there. You and Arran wandered off. Abandoned me. So I had no choice. Went to look for someone. Anyone. My heart clenched. Had she gotten separated from Arran and wound up all alone in that pitch-black engine room? I didn't abandon you. I got separated and what? I tried to remember when I left the engine room, but my mind was blank. A faint memory of motion. It was somewhere else. Gosh, you did. Another gulp. The bottle was around half empty, but of course I didn't know how full it had been when she'd found it. I swallowed, getting more uneasy. I figured I could use me to pick me up. She tapped the bottle with a claw. Her head was bowed and her hair draped around her, hiding her face. Despite the booze, part of me was moved to pity. She mumbled something I didn't catch with slurred words, followed by a load of unintelligible nonsense. She gulped again. This time she released the bottle and buried her face in her hands. Taking my opportunity, I swiped the bottle. Its sickly caramel scent triggered anger, resentment, a sickly feeling in my stomach. I took the cork from the table and replaced it. My heart raced. I expected Dana to become aggravated. I kept a firm grip on the bottle and watched her closely, but she didn't move. She mumbled something, her voice muffled by her hands and slurred by the alcohol that I couldn't understand. I didn't know how to react. Part of me wanted to pat her on the back, try to commiserate with her, but I knew from experience that was a risky move. The drunks I dealt with in my life had not reacted well to such gestures. I need to ask Arran what happened. He's with her after all. I backed away, taking the bottle with me. A pang of guilt gnawed at me. The profound sadness, betrayal even in her voice when she'd said, "Abandon me," was surprising from her. On my way to the hair, I passed the bottle to Gail, who took it, confused at first, then understanding. She slipped it below the table and continued to comfort her sister. I approached Arran, who was still poking at the empty food can. I called out to him and he twitched a little, but didn't respond, just went back to sliding the empty can around. "Arran, you okay?" I slid around the table, sit opposite him and saw his eyes. They were glazed, staring at the can but not really focused. It looked awful, like he'd not slept in a week. He didn't meet my gaze, just gave a soft sigh and poked the can again. "Where were you?" "Me? I must have gotten lost." His eyes briefly flicked up to glance at me, and there was... I don't know what exactly, but his expression was unpleasant. Accusing? Suspicious? Sure. Then he went back to his dazed state. His voice was non-committal, not even sarcastic, just apathetic. What the fuck had even happened to these two? They'd been fine, relatively speaking, when I'd last seen them. Did you see or hear anything in the engine room? His ear twitched and I felt the briefest of taps on the floor. Like what? Like Rufus? Or June? Or anyone else who was missing? I tried to keep the growing impatience from my voice, but it wasn't making it easy. Out of the 10 people who had arrived here, 1 was likely dead and 4 were missing. I don't remember. I got lost. Arran, please talk to me. I felt something down there, like I heard or... I gestured, trying to find the words before something struck me. About his behaviour. About Dana's. Arran, have you seen anyone unusual? I called his reaction, though it lasted a fraction of a second. His foot tapped, his ear twitched, and the can he was poking rattled as he nearly toppled it. His gaze, previously focused and groggy, looked me sharply in the eye. But this time I thought my nose caught a hint of... Why? I mean, who do you mean? What would I have seen on this fucking ghost ship? Burnt lemons. Did you? Could he have seen Connor? And if so, recognised him? I doubted he'd know him even from photos. He wasn't exactly an important officer. There's no way to mistake the family resemblance. He opened his mouth a few times before blurting out, "No." And people said I was a terrible liar. Arran, please. If you saw someone down there, I was interrupted by someone entering the mess hall. We all looked around to the entrance to see. "Oh, thank God." Gail beamed and waved her over. I was tempted to interrogate Arran some more, but he's back to fiddling with the spork again, ears down and listless. Annoyed, I pushed back from the table and approached June, who had dashed over to Gail. "June, good to see you're okay." "Likewise, got lost and separated from everyone else. I thought everyone had wandered off into the blizzard." I was about to speak when I noticed her demeanour. Her voice was bright, expression upbeat, though I could see a hint of darkness beneath her eyes, betraying her exhaustion. Was this the same woman only hours prior was in bits and pieces over Joseph? "Did you find anything?" "Find what?" Gail and I exchanged glances. "Joseph." It was the briefest of moments, but I saw it. Her eyes darted to the door and she touched her arm. Then she gave us a solemn look. "No, but I think you guys were right. It's too dangerous to look again." I admit, the look she gave us was a mighty effort to convince. If I hadn't just spoken, or tried to at least, Arran and Dana, I'd almost have been convinced. "You don't want to make sure? I mean, the others are still missing. Maybe someone else found him." "I'm sure. It was stupid and selfish of me anyway. I put everyone else at risk." And that was when my suspicion was confirmed. I knew this voice, this sentiment, this, "Oh, I was just being a bit silly, it's no big deal." I knew it very well. It was a tactic I knew from Mum. One she deployed to try and defuse and deflect attention from something. Before I could ask anything more, the sound of huffing, rapid paw steps approaching the doorway. Then, "Guys, anyone?" Dana jerked up, looking around in confusion as Stefan barged in. His eyes were like saucers and his fur matted with sweat. "Stefan, what's wrong?" "Guys, you have to..." He looked like he was going to collapse. Arran and Dana both got to their feet, Dana a bit unsteadily, and we crowded around him as he doubled over. "Stefan, take a breath and calm down." But bodies, lots of bodies." We all exchanged looks. Dana, despite the bleary-eyed look, immediately marched forwards. "Bodies, are you sure?" Never been more sure of anything in my life." "Where? Take us there." "Whose bodies? The Arran crew, Joseph?" Stefan finally pushed himself upright and gesticulated wildly. There's this creepy room. It's got graffiti in some foreign language. It was open and I got curious." My blood ran cold. "Huh? Creepy room? What creepy room?" "I know what you're talking about." She immediately took off, not waiting for anyone else. "Dana, wait. We shouldn't split up. There's already..." Dana ignored her, marching through the door, her paw steps quickly fading away. "People still missing." "I'm going to look." Me too. Tabby, are you after moving?" Tabby seemed a bit more calm now, calm enough to speak. You think? Mom? We can't know for certain till we look. It's what we came here for." "Maybe I should wait here. I wouldn't want to intrude if they are your loved ones." "Jill, don't you confirm if any of them are Joseph?" "Don't you think it's a bad idea to be by yourself in this situation?" She gave us both an odd look, then cringed and looked away. "Yeah, you're right." I was getting increasingly frustrated. What was wrong with everyone? Putting it aside, I led the way to the room I knew far more than I'd ever liked to. I was the only one of our group who knew the way. As the darkness crept closer, I became aware of just how much we'd been relying on our torches. How long would the batteries last? We had spares in the mess hall, along with kerosene lanterns if it came to that. I'd hate to be caught in complete darkness. Through winding corridors that changed from smooth, vaguely pleasant-looking hallways to dark, decrepit passages covered in pipes, cables and other machinery, we eventually found our way. Dana and Steph were both standing before the now open door. Both seemed stunned, or perhaps frightened as they stood rooted to the spot. And though I felt an awful sickness in my stomach, a sense of overbearing dread accompanying that familiar drilling in my skull, something drew me closer. Like magnetism or gravity, every synapse screamed to leave, to run. My body moved stiffly forward. The door was heavy and sturdy. I noticed the handle's been turned. Who'd unlocked it? And when? I felt a firm hand on my shoulder and glanced back to see Dana. Her jaw was set with grim determination, and even the bleariness for a semi-drunken gaze had cleared up a little. She gripped the door, and together we pulled the heavy, rusted thing wide enough to slip through. Behind me I heard horrified gasps and Tabby whimpering, followed by Gale soothing her. Body bags laid out neatly on the floor, 7 of them to be exact. The shapes too indistinct to tell what species its cadaver was. For that, we'd need to open them. And I wasn't up for volunteering. The rest of the room, strangely, reminded me of the laboratory owing to the bizarre stone objects that lined the shelves. Like before, they came in all sizes and shapes, each covered in the strange markings even Sharif hadn't been able to identify. And for some reason, they creeped me out even more than the bodies. But then Dana nudged me, pointed at something curled up against the shelf. My heart stopped. The corpse was propped up in the corner, mummified by the frigid temperature, wearing what looked like cold weather gear. Dana took cautious steps toward the body. Even as every nerve in my body screamed at me to leave, to run, I was drawn in her wake. I glanced down the bodies wrapped up on the floor. Who were they? A list of names rattled around my head. Dr. Waters, Carrie Marsh, Hannah Dixon. The closer we got to the dead crewman, the deeper the dread I felt. Like I was expecting the frail, desiccated corpse to leap up at me. I knelt. It was male. My nose detected the very faint odour of decay, delayed by the sub-zero temperatures. Dana knelt too, peering closely. For someone who downed a load of whiskey, she seemed surprisingly sharp. A cougar, I think. Seemed to be in his late 40s or early 50s. My eyes were drawn to his hands. They were frozen stiff, obviously. Their position suggested they'd been holding something. Dana seemed to notice too. We exchanged baffled looks. His position wasn't natural. Had he really frozen to death like this? That's when I spotted something, poking out of his uniform pocket. It looked like... Garrett! Jesus! I nearly jumped into my skin as I felt a hand on my shoulder. Sharif had appeared from nowhere. Oh, didn't you hear me? I said, don't touch him. What? No, I didn't. Sharif, where have you been? I got separated from the rest of the search. Now get away from Tobias. I gave him a confused look. Tobias? I glanced back at the body before it struck me. Just stay away from him. For the first time I heard a particular strain in his voice. Grief. The anger from before had faded. Now he's pushing past me to kneel by the side of the dead man. I stepped back, guilt washing over me. Sharif had finally discovered the fate of his friend. I heard loud thumping hoofbeats from outside, and we all, minus Sharif, turned to see Rufus barge through the door. Christ almighty, you're a sight for sore eyes. What happened to... Shh. She angrily waved him off and then gestured for the rest of us to follow. I took one last look at Sharif, leaning by his friend with his head bowed. I saw him reach a trembling hand out towards Hagen's body, hesitate, then drop back to his side. As we left, I heard a stifled sob. Gail, was she... Tappy's voice trembled and Gail looked haunted. No, Mom wasn't among them. The two sisters were clean sure to feel about this. Dana, however, took control. All right, since you're all now back together. She gave Rufus a contemptuous look, cut him off before he could speak. Although she couldn't hide her stilted movements and slightly halting speech, mannerisms I'd regretfully learned to spot in others who drank. Garrett, Arran, what's the deal with the radio? Fixed, I think. You think? I did what I could with what I had. I'm reasonably sure it'll work, but I can't be certain without power. Okay, and Tabby? I grimaced. I saw the previously pretty rock-solid lass glance fearfully at the tigress. Whatever she'd been through in the engine room had thoroughly spooked her. She tried, okay? She doesn't go back in there. Gail, what if... I said no! She bellowed, now stepping towards Rufus threateningly. The difference in size and build was almost comical. Rufus could probably lift her with one hand. That only confirmed how serious she was. Silence followed as Rufus looked away, shamefaced. Dana watched him with a calculating look. I think everyone should account for their movements. And why should we do that? Oh God, this is just what we needed. Need I remind everyone there's a killer on the loose? Unless we're all agreed it wasn't one of us and there's someone else on board. A burst of adrenaline shot through me like a bolt of lightning. I tried my best not to give anything away. In this situation, telling about Connor wouldn't just make him suspect number one. There's a good chance I'd be suspected just from being his brother. Not to mention I concealed his existence. Fuck. The longer this went on, the less possible it would be for me to reveal him without causing a shitstorm. Dana, are we sure it wasn't an animal that killed Joseph? Look, the reason we split up in the first place was to find him in case he was still alive. Did anyone find any trace? After a moment of silence and awkward looks, Dana glared at June, who seemed to be only half paying attention, nervously glancing around the dark corridors. June? She jumped at being addressed like she'd been tasered. Oh, what? I mean... She glanced around fiercely at the tired, gaunt faces watching her. No, I didn't. Look, I'm sorry. It was stupid of me to encourage everyone to go wandering. She hugged herself and looked away. Dana huffed through her nose while looking at Rufus and Stefan. And you two? When we went on deck and the blizzard rolled in, I got lost. Called out, but who could hear anything over the wind? So why didn't you return to the mess hall? I wanted to, but I got turned around in the blizzard. Found my way to the front of the ship and went down to the lower decks, but I couldn't find my way back. I ran across this. He gestures at the door. I took a look inside and... He swallowed, gesticulating, his big pleading eyes silently begging Dana to believe him. She narrowed her eyes, tail swishing angrily, but she didn't comment further. Let me save you the bother of grilling me. I was in the engine room when I heard weird noise. Went to look, but I got lost and got my way back to the engine room. His anger faded a little as he offered an apologetic look to the sisters. I'm real sorry, ladies. I didn't mean to leave you all like that. This fucking ship is a maze. I could see Dana mulling his words when Tabby suddenly spoke up in a soft voice. I think I saw someone. Someone who isn't one of us. Now all eyes were on her. It was so quiet I could almost hear the heartbeats of those around me. Oh, what did they... Who? Who are you? All three spoke at once, alarmed, while stopping as they all exchanged glances with each other. I expected Dana to bark at them, but strangely she also looked disturbed. Stefan also looked freaked out. That isn't funny. Don't mess around like that. I'm telling the truth. I saw someone. And it wasn't Gail or Rufus. The food I'd eaten an hour or so before threatened to reappear. Connor been seen? What was he doing in the engine room if he'd been avoiding the others? I'd need to ask. No, demand an explanation next time I saw him. Just needed to figure out where he was holed up. What did they look like? Dana's voice was surprisingly gentle. She unfolded her arms. I didn't. It was so dark. I only saw some feet and, I think, trousers. What kind of feet? Hoofs? Paws? I'm sorry. I only caught a glimpse of some legs. They were standing right next to me while I was under the... She sounded like she was going to burst into tears, and Gail clutched her close. Enough. Tabby was scared out of her mind. Gail, I know what I saw. Some of her old nerve came back. She glanced around the frightened faces. Something gnawed at the back of my mind about this, by the way everyone was behaving. I couldn't put my finger on it. But Tabby claiming to have seen someone who shouldn't have been there rattled everyone. After a moment of silence, Dana finally rubbed her eyes and furrowed her brow. Okay, we should all head back to the mess hall and figure out what to do next. If we can't get the engine running, then we need another option. Garrett. I nearly jumped to her weak voice, nearly blended into the soft hum of air whistling through the corridors. I was thinking about a power supply. What about the snowcats? I blinked at her. You know, the big snow tractors. I saw one in a hangar on deck when we first arrived. It took a moment for the cogs to turn in my head, distracted as I was by everything else. But then it hit me. The battery. It looked like a pretty modern model. It seemed like it was in good condition. You reckon you could power the radio with the battery? There was a murmur as hopeful looks were exchanged. It's possible. I'll need Tabby to help disconnecting it and moving it to the bridge. It'll be heavy. But yeah, this cold weather might have preserved its charge. I wanted to bring up the litany of possible issues with this plan. The battery could be drained, it could be faulty or destroyed. I need to rig up a way to power the radio with it. Tabby, what do we need to warm up the battery before we use it? Chilling it might have preserved the charge, but getting to power something like that radio in that state might not work if it's frozen. Yeah, probably. We can cross that bridge when we come to it. Didn't you say you found an oil heater? She pointed at Stefan, who became excited. Yeah, it's in the cabin I was crashing in. I can go fetch it. Well, goddamn, sounds like we have ourselves a plan. Wait a minute. Dana had been listening intently. Now she pinched between her eyes. felt a familiar pang of irritation and frustration. I'd have thought Dane of all people would know better than to get drunk at a time like this. Her ability to hold her liquor was impressive. No doubt she was a practiced drinker. But booze-addled minds at a time like this was the last thing we needed. A couple of uneasy glances told me I wasn't alone thinking this. If we take the battery, we'll be able to put it back afterwards. What if we need the snowcat to escape? Escape where? We don't know where we are. Yes, that's a problem. Even if we got the radio working, there's no guarantee we're close enough to someone to be heard. And even then... She folded her arms, scouring at Arran. How would we tell them where we are? We don't have coordinates, a GPS, or even a map. Felt like a bucket of cold water had been thrown over me. Of course, contact and rescue wouldn't mean much if we couldn't tell them where we were. We should look for charts. Even if the GPS was faulty, they'd have physical maps and routes plotted. Well, that's just fine. We can temporarily split into two groups. One to grab the battery, another to look around. Are we really going to split up again? Yeah, it's just so we can move the battery to the bridge. Once we're all in one place, we can keep an eye on each other. You aren't listening. If we disable the only working vehicle, we won't even have the option to leave. Rufus was about to argue when the sound of the door behind us creaking drew our gazes. Sharif looked drained. His face was moist, but he still held himself upright, daintily brushing himself off and giving a small cough. Forgive me, I am fine now. Gail looked like she wanted to say something to him, reassure him maybe, but Rufus and Dana both shot her looks that stopped her. I'm not sure they felt Sharif would respond poorly to attempts to cheer him up, or they simply didn't want to leave the subject. Either way, Sharif silently joined our group. Look, let's just look for charts and maps first. We should be keeping our options open. If we don't find anything to help rescuers locate us, the vehicle might be our only option. Can we maybe not stand here and discuss this? There's a bunch of... He trailed off, quickly catching a glimpse of Sharif. For once he seemed to stop himself while blundering into saying something insensitive. There were a few murmurs of approval. They didn't seem any more pleased to be standing around this place than the rest of us, so as a gesture she started to lead us back. I took one last lingering look back at the door. There was something in the back of my mind that was drawing me, an inexplicable fascination. Fortunately, a much larger part of me was telling me to get the fuck away from that frozen tomb and never come back. We all filed miserably into the dingy, now musty-smelling mess hall. Where a few hours ago its warm lantern light and sleeping spaces might have made it seem like a sanctuary, now it felt more like a prison. People drifted off into groups. Tabby and Gail were naturally by themselves. Stefan, Arran and Rufus clustered around a table, talking in hushed tones. Sharif stood sullenly by himself near the door, while Dana grabbed a bottle of water and gulped it down, probably fighting the incoming hangover. June, meanwhile, sat by herself, looking a little dazed. She glanced around at the others, but only seemed to be half paying attention. A disposition I confirmed when I approached nonchalantly and offered a greeting, only for her to jump and stare at me with fright. Oh, Garrett! Oh, don't scare me like that. Sorry. People repeatedly reacting to me like a movie monster might have given me a complex about looks, if I had any confidence in my appearance in the first place. No, I'm sorry. Just a little jumpy. She quickly recovered and even looked apologetic. I gingerly slid onto the bench opposite. I wanted to ask her about, a number of things, but I also didn't want to spook her into shutting down. She brushed her hair back with her hand, round to her eyes dark rightwards, just for the briefest of moments. Was she looking at Sharif? Or the mess hall door? You okay? Holding up? Me? Oh, yeah, of course. She gave me a grin and a dismissive hand motion so unconvincing even I could see through it. How about you? Oh. She lowered her voice and leaned in. How's the eye? Been giving you trouble? I admit I wasn't entirely sure how the conversation was going to go given our behaviour. This was something else. It's like she'd forgotten about, everything. Oh, it's fine. I have my eye drops, so I'll be okay for a while. I gave my pocket a pat for emphasis. Oh, that's great. I noticed that her eyes once again darted towards the entrance. I couldn't contain myself any longer. I had to ask. June, how are you feeling? I mean, about Joseph? I spoke as delicately as I could, bracing myself for her to fall back into the despair and mess she'd been before. But instead, Joseph, she yelped in a quiet but high-pitched voice, eyes wide with alarm. She seemed to catch herself, though, quickly adopted a facsimile of her old despondency. Fuck me. Was this what I looked like when I was lying? I resolved not to challenge or provoke her. If I was going to get any kind of answer, she needed to be reassured. Yeah, I'm still worried, but I don't think we should risk anyone else trying to find him. Are you sure? We don't even have a body. He could still be alive. No. She was suddenly firm. For a brief moment I caught a bit of her old nerve, like back on the Sylvia when she'd laid down the law on Arran and Dana's bickering. Look, I appreciate it, Garrett. I'm really grateful to everyone for the efforts they made, but look. She made a gesture at the others in the room, all still either absorbed in themselves or having hushed conversations of their own. We all got separated. Tabby got the fight for life. Any one of us could have gotten lost or injured or worse. She met my eyes, hands clasped before her. I can't ask you guys to risk yourselves on my behalf. We should focus on getting rescued. Once they get you, they have all the time they need to search while they take me home. I raised an eyebrow. What did she say? I'm sorry, June, but all the time they need? Aren't you worried he might still be... The sound of the door made both of us jump. Everyone looked towards the source, the main entrance. But more to the point, Sharif was missing. Sharif! Sharif! The tigress had been standing at the counter with her head in her hands until roused by the noise. She stormed over to the door, wrenched it open and disappeared. The furious calls echoed in the corridors and around the room as Rufus stood, holding a torch and shining out in the corridors, but didn't leave the room. I stood up and moved toward the door. What happened? What's wrong with Sharif? Oh, I guess finding his buddy dead in that meat locker did a number on him. Wait here, don't none of you all leave, you hear? Without waiting for a response, he gripped his torch and left, allowing the door to slowly swing closed. Gail, Tabby, Arran and Stefan approached me. Gail and Tabby both looked concerned, though Tabby had regained some of her former nerve. Arran had a distinct look of, here we go again. To be honest, I wasn't far off from such a feeling myself. Stefan, though, I wonder what the good professor is up to. He spoke as though to himself, but his tone was clearly directed at us, as though challenging us to respond. Oh, for fuck's sake. He rounded on the possum, his foot tapping rapidly. He literally just found his dead friend. Arran, please, let's not. No, I've had enough of this conspiracy shite. He stepped towards Stefan, who backed away, alarmed. I'd never seen Arran so angry, not even when Dana had implicated his sister back on the Sylvia. I am sick to death of this fucking X-Files shite. Sharif is grieving his fucking best pal, and he responded in a completely understandable way, and like a certain someone. Stefan's expression rippled, though a barrage of conflicting emotions were competing to take centre stage in his brain. The one that settled startled even me. Fury. Oh? And I suppose the fucking trainee psychologist would know, wouldn't he? Tell me, other than being a belligerent asshole, what do you have to offer the group? Gail glanced fearfully back and forth, but seemed unable to interject. Tavi locked eyes with me, trying to figure out how to defuse the argument. Garrett fixed the radio, Tavi tried to fix the engine, Rufus has been trying to keep this group together, and Dane's been trying to find who killed Joseph. And being a prick to Garrett while you contributed. Whoa, wait a minute. You know what? He stepped closer to Stefan, poking a finger in his chest and staring up at him. Stefan was taller, Brown was the better built of the two, and knew he worked out. In a fight, I know who I'd place money on. I am fucking done with your insufferable delusions. Alex is dead. He might even be one of those bodies in that fucking room. Stefan faltered, his mouth flapping as he tried to find the words to respond, but it's clear Arran had hit him where it hurt. You are in denial, and I... The mess hall door squeaked open and Rufus and Dana both pushed their way inside. Sharif, however, was nowhere to be seen. Sharif is gone. Just goddamn disappeared. We need to look for him. At this, everyone turned to look at the pair. Rufus, through gritted teeth, exclaimed, "No, we absolutely do not." "He could get into trouble, may even get injured. We can't just... Let him go." Now everyone was looking at the possum. Even Arran, who moments ago was preparing to unload his bile upon him, seemed surprised. "Think about it. If what the resident psychologist had to say is true..." He gave a hostile look at the hare. Arran seemed like he was going to retort before Stefan continued. "Then he's mourning, and I think he needs space." The whiplash nearly sheared my head from my neck. I'm accusing him of being a conspirator to appropriate Arran's arguments about him grieving in mere moments. "That's fucking stupid. There's a killer here. We need..." "Dana, enough. Look, I agree we should stick together. If Sharif's going to run off on his own to do God knows what, let him. What matters is we stick together. We here, in this room." He jabbed a finger down the floor. "We grab that battery, we power the radio, we call it up, we get to our asses to fuck off this goddamn floating coffin. Are we agreed?" Gail and Arran both brightened immediately, nodding a murmur in approval. Tabby looked pensive, but also nodded. "Have you been listening to me? We use the battery to lose our only means of escape." "If we don't, we can't summon help. What the hell are we supposed to escape to out here?" "That's why we need charts, maps, some record of where we are. Rescue won't find us, we can't tell them where we are." "Can't they, track us by a signal? Follow our broadcast or something?" There was a brief silence as her eyes scanned me, then Tabby, then finally June. She was watching us with a semi-glazed look in her eyes, like she's only half paying attention. "June, I guess you know more about this than any of us." She seemed to snap out of her daze and gave a thoughtful look. "Oh, it's possible to track a radio broadcast, just use the signal. But we need to broadcast long enough for them to triangulate our position. And we need to be able to contact someone in the first place. It won't do us much good if we can't tell someone we're in distress." "You see, we should find out where we are. We only need to broadcast long enough to give our location." "But the ship isn't where it's supposed to be, remember? What if the charts are wrong?" Dana, for once, didn't have a response. She opened her mouth, paused, then closed it, looking annoyed. Can I suggest something?" She raised her hand gingerly. "I don't know about any of you, but I'm starving. I don't think trying to think or work on empty stomachs is a good idea." As if to make her point, Rufus, Stefan, and Tabby's stomachs all growled in unison. After an awkward silence, a brief ripple of laughter went around the room. "All right, I reckon that's a good idea. We need to ration it out. This is all we have." We went to a counter where the battered and faded cans of food were sitting in a wooden box. There were 12 cans. Between 9 people, if we have half a can each, that means 2 meals each plus 3 cans to spare. "Only half." She sounded both alarmed and despairing. Gail hugged her tightly. "You can have my share, okay?" "I get what you're trying to do, Gail, but you need food as much as anyone." I had a can recently before we went to that weird room. I'm not hungry right now, so we can treat that like my ration for today." My stomach threatened to betray me with a loud growl. I put on a brave face. "Oh, good man." There was a soft touch and a brief thump on the floor as Arran spoke up. "I also had a can about an hour ago, so don't worry about me." He sounded a lot more bitter, but Rufus gave him a big smile anyway. "Very good of you. All right, so I only need 3. "I'll share with Tabby. And I'm going to insist you eat your half. No tricks or complaints, okay?" Gail gave her a wry grin. The 2 sisters knew each other too well. "I can share with June if that's okay." June nodded and smiled, but didn't stand up from her table. This just left Dana and Rufus. I could feel the tension between them. They both clearly felt like they were in charge, especially since Sharif had basically given up any authority. Assuming he had any left, of course. Still, they selected a can and, after silently agreeing, grabbed a plastic spork each. I'd expect them to split up again, but this time they all gathered around the same table, sliding onto the benches. Admittedly, I was pleased. I was tired of the constant bickering. Having a group meal felt like a good way to try and rekindle some camaraderie. Everyone, not including Arran and myself of course, started eating, taking turns to grab sporkfuls of the cold food. At first there wasn't much talking, everyone poked at the food with a distinct lack of enthusiasm. I remembered the unpleasant meat slop I'd eaten in the hospital. Ice-cold food wasn't the best for morale. Garrett, can I ask you something?" Sure. Are you sure the vehicle battery will work? Everyone paused. They didn't look at me, but I could tell they were listening. It should do. Normally the radio would run off the mains, but a vehicle battery should have the right wattage. And you're sure you can hook it up? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Why are you asking? She bit her lip and looked away. I started to recognise her tells. She's worried I might fail, and if so, then it'd fall to her to figure out a way to get it working. He'll be fine. Garrett knows what he's doing. He fixed the radio already, right? Aye, I think so. The words left my mouth before I could catch them. I think so is not the reassurance people needed right now. But then, I didn't want to lie. Setting aside the fact I was awful at it, the radio didn't work, I'd have gotten everyone's hopes up for nothing. With a deep breath, I decided to just pull the plaster off. Insides were pretty miraculously intact, considering someone clearly tried to smash it. Most of the parts I needed to repair were wires, cables, stuff that was pretty easy to patch together. Circuit boards were a different matter. They were mostly intact, but I had to solder them as best I could. I won't know if I repaired them until we power it up and try to use it. All the more reason to get that battery and hold it up there, right? He had some of his old joviality back and gave me a big grin. Relax, Garrett. Got a good brain behind that badass scar. You'll figure it out. Rufus! I couldn't help but grin at a scandalised tone. God damn it, Rufus. Why did you have to be hot and confident? I could feel some of his energy rubbing off on me. Maybe I could do this. I had the knowledge, the training, the tools. A smattering conversation followed as everyone finished sharing their cans. The first time since the Sylvia sank, I felt a little more normal. After a while, Stefan stood and stretched with the sounds of bones creaking and joints popping. Guys, sorry to say this, but I need to take a leak. Gail and Tabby made unamused faces. Arran and June both quickly stood. Me too. Hate to say it, but me too. The pair of them looked like they wanted to object, but apparently thought better of it. I mean, it wasn't like they could hold it in or go here in the mess hall. Just come right back, no dawdling or wandering. A little of the light-hearted mood faded at her words. Aye, aye, mon capitaine. He stormed out, making eye contact with her. Stefan gave a shrug and followed, along with June. We continued to talk, though we really didn't have much to say. Trying to chit-chat in this situation just felt pointless. Even Gail, normally willing to strike up small talk, only occasionally offered any conversation. The sounds of the winds outside had died down, and I could actually see the horizon outside. The blizzard had finally relented. My thoughts turned to the snowcat. I had noticed when I originally arrived that I wasn't exactly in a state to explore. If it was here, intact, yet operational, what did that say about the crew? Had they taken other vehicles? The Arran didn't have any aircraft like helicopters as part of a complement, despite having a helideck. Time and again my thoughts turned to the mystery of where the rest of the crew had gone. Only a handful of bodies, including the chief researcher. And he had likely been sealed up, alive. Garrett, what did June say to you? I looked up in surprise. She's watching me carefully with that piercing, analytical glare. I'm sorry? You were speaking to her before, right? Did she say anything unusual? The others were quiet now, all eyes on me, and I glanced around, feeling like I was being interrogated. In what way? You know in what way, Garrett. She sat up straight, crossing her arms. Tabby and Gail both looked confused. But Rufus, he was also watching me carefully. What's this about? It's just, June seemed very different ever since she went off to search. Like, I don't know, like she wasn't upset anymore. Rufus nodded along and Dana narrowed her eyes. Did she say why? Not as such. Just she was sorry for dragging us all on the search when it was so dangerous. She said she shouldn't try to look again until rescue comes. Dana finally looked away, resting her chin on her fingertips, reminding me of Sharif when he was pondering. Speaking of, those guys should be back by now. We all looked towards the door. I strained my ears for sounds of approaching paw steps. There was just a soft whistle of wind through the corridors. The toilet was just down the corridor. Shouldn't have taken all three of them this long. I'm going to check on them. Ain't a cool it. Already got 4 people missing. We should... Then I hear the sounds of brisk paw steps approaching. Moments later, Arran pushed inside, still obviously in a foul mood. What were you doing all this time? She immediately started on him, but he dismissed her with a wave. Do you really want me to describe taking a piss? You took half an hour for a piss? Irina, Jesus, can it for a second? Where's June and Stefan? I don't know. What, did you want me to chaperone them back like some fucking hall monitor? Rufus gave a guttural snort of anger and stood, drawing himself up to his full height and towering over Arran. The hair quickly changed his attitude. I don't know. I need to be alone for a while, process some things, and I lost track of time. Then you see Stefan going to the toilets. He'd leave before you. Well, yes, he did, but I don't know when. I wasn't paying attention to him. I guess he just did his business and left. Dana looked about ready to punch someone, so did Rufus. Dana pinched her nose in frustration. We need to search for them. Oh, for God's sake, they probably just need some space like I did. This might come as a shock to you, Dana. Your company isn't exactly a comfort blanket. Her tail swished dangerously and a growl lumbled in her chest. Am I the only one that remembers that someone got fucking killed and the bridge is a slaughterhouse? All right, Jesus Christ, I'll go. Though his deep voice cut across the room, he raised his hands placatingly. I'll go. I'll check the toilets, have a look around the general area. Promise I won't go far, okay? He added the last bit when he saw Dana's bare teeth. I agree with Arran, they're probably just going to have some alone time. God knows I think some of us need it. He gave Arran a hard look, turned, wrenched the door open and stomped off. The sounds of his hooves on the floor disappeared off into the distance. The awkward silence that followed was so torturous I was tempted to leave myself. Slowly we drifted apart to sit by ourselves. The absolute silence in the room felt so oppressive. My thoughts bounced around between the dozen different worries, theories, or concerns I had at any given moment. How long had Rufus been gone? Or the others, for that matter? Time seemed infinite in this place. No real day-night cycle to keep us grounded, and without my phone I couldn't even tell the time. Connor. Where was he? What was he up to now? He'd ran off before telling me where he's going or how to find him. What if someone ran into him? What if Rufus and the others returned, dragging him along? If we somehow coordinated our stories, my lies would unravel pretty much instantly, especially in front of Dana. Plus we were brothers. We looked so alike there was no possibility they missed the resemblance. My head felt fuzzy, like I was drowsy, but then... My fur stood up, my hackles raised, my tail went stiff, my mouth went dry, my heart felt like a hand was squeezing it. A threat. Something nearby. Then I heard it, a soft scraping at the door. It was slightly ajar, a pitch-black slit leading into the corridors. And there was an eye staring, white, glinting off the lantern light. Me. It was staring at me. I could hear someone, or something, just at the edge of my hearing. Beckoning, not inviting but demanding, or daring. It wanted me, like a hungry predator. It wanted me. I've had enough. Dana slammed her table, sending empty cans rattling. Dana! This is ridiculous. We're getting picked off one by one. Picked off? Don't you think you're being a bit... No. She bellowed at Gale, making her recoil. For a moment she stood, breathing heavily as her eyes flashed dangerously. But then she came to her senses. She looked appalled and raised her hands. Gale, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have shouted. Gale still looked frightened, but to her credit she smiled and nodded in acceptance of her apology. Look. She turned to address the room. I know I sound like a broken record, but... You want to go looking for them? Dana grimaced, then pinched her nose again. I get I'm not exactly Miss Popular here, but I don't want any harm to come to anyone else. So I'm asking you all, please, let's search as a group. Dana, My heart was still pounding. I glanced back to the door. Garrett? Seeing my alarm, she followed my gaze to the door. She strides toward it and flung it open. Dana, stop! But it's too late. The door swung open and the lantern light flooded out into the corridor where my predator had been skulking just moments ago. Hello? Rufus? Stefan? June? But nothing answered. No beast leapt upon her. It was just an empty corridor. Nothing. God damn it. She turned to look at me with annoyance. When she saw the petrified look on my face, she became concerned. Garrett? I was still watching the doorway. Part of me felt that whatever it was, it had left. For the fact it had been so close, just meters away, told me it could still be nearby. It's nothing. Nothing. You know you're a terrible liar, right? I said forget it. I'm tired, okay? My mind was torn between telling them and risking them thinking I was losing it or shrugging it off. She clearly wasn't convinced, but mercifully let it be. Look, I get it. We're all exhausted, we're feeling the strain. We're all we have. If we start ignoring each other, there's no telling if we'll last long enough to even get rescued. So I'm asking you all, please help me look for the others. We all exchanged looks. We tried to come to a consensus. Arran looked a little guilty. All right, fine. We sit close together. I swear to Christ, if anyone wanders off and leaves me alone again, I will kill you myself. This drew a few chuckles, even a small smile from Dana. Yeah, okay, same deal. No one leaves the group. Sensing agreement, Dana sighed and gestured for us to follow. Collecting our torches, we marched grimly, as a group out into the corridor. We decided to head to the bridge first. It was a key part of the ship where the charts were likely located, and I figured we could check on the radio as well. The entire time we made our way up, we were calling out. Normally I'd have been terrified of making so much noise, but the presence of the others was a welcome comfort. My ears constantly scanned for that presence. Every glint of metal made my stomach clench. Every creak or groan made me spin to confront it. The others seemed to notice my clear apprehension. Garrett, what is it? You're seriously freaking me out, man. Sorry, I'm just on edge. I wanted to tell them. What? I saw an eye at the door that vanished the moment Dana opened it. That some mysterious presence was watching me. Arran was already wary of me, especially for nearly scaring him to death on the bridge. But I couldn't deny what I felt, what I saw. Hey, guys? I turned to Gale and Tabby. If you don't want to go in, it's fine. Just so you know, it's really bad. I can handle blood, Garrett. Perhaps the first time since I met her, Gale expressed irritation with me. I should have known Gale would be made of sterner stuff. That said, I couldn't help but catch a moment of stunned silence. She paused, slowly scanning the room. Tabby looked like she was going to throw up and gave a little whimper. Anyone? She called out there was nothing but the wind. Yes, it's fucked up. Someone must have heard us by now. Garrett, is this it? She motioned toward the radio room. I nodded and led her to the ruined door. Inside, the radio, patched together as best I could, stood untouched since me and Arran had last been here. Oh, it looks pretty torn up. Yeah, someone went at it with an axe or something. The critical parts inside survived for the most part. I mostly had to hook up its components to the interface. She scanned the radio with her torch before turning to me. Damn, am I glad you decided to stay on this little cruise. She gave me a wide beaming grin and clapped my shoulder before walking out. Gale and Tabby, who had both been peering over our shoulders, both did the same and murmured warm approval. The only reason I knew my frigid numb tail was wagging was because Tabby gave a little grin and rolled her eyes. We moved down, methodically pausing on each level to call out. Still no responses. Complete lack of responses were more terrifying than any scream. Where the fuck were they? The ship wasn't large enough for 4 people screaming out to the top of their lungs to go unnoticed. As my throat started to hurt, I could hear in the voices of the others the increasing shrillness, the hoarseness in their shouts. Any conversation between us had halted since the bridge. And yet, just from their shouts, I could tell they were becoming increasingly terrified. By the time we moved below decks, the overpowering stench of fear from the others was almost enough to make my eyes water. Arran's ears never once dropped from fully erected, swirling for any responses to our calls. Each time we paused to call out and await a response, his paw tapped at least once. hadn't detected that presence since the mess hall, and I'd been tempted to dismiss it the way I had when Arran and I had been on the bridge. But I know what I saw. Deeper and deeper. No discussion, no chit-chat. Only our increasingly desperate cries. Tabby was practically glued to Gale at this point as the darkness swallowed us. It was as we approached a T-junction I noticed two things. The first was that the corridor branching off to our right looked familiar. The second was that a familiar, horrifying stench emanated from it. Subtle at first, yet to make me pause and flash my torch down the dark passageway. Garrett? The other stopped. I tried to swallow, but my tongue was like parchment. I sniffed again, hoping it was a fluke. The metallic tang hit my sinuses and made my stomach lurch. There was no mistake. Blood. Even Dana looked afraid. She shone a torch alongside me down the passage. The beam only just reached the far end, shown at the T-junction. We couldn't see anything out of the ordinary. No blood or bodies. But some kind of violence had taken place. Whatever it was down there. Are you sure? His voice was more pleading than the question. Can you tell? I mean, whose blood it is? Can't say I familiarised myself with everyone's blood scent. I grimaced and quickly gave her an apologetic look. Sorry, but no. All I can tell you is it's blood and it's recent. Dana shouted into the corridor. June, Stefan, Sharif, Rufus, one name after the other. We only got back oppressive silence. We looked at each other, frightened our eyes they would as they came to an agreement. Slowly, carefully, we started down the corridor. Instead of shouting, now we were only hissing out the names of the others, barely above whispering. The stench was getting stronger, and as we reached the far end of the corridor, I realised with a growing sense of dread where we were, and what was nearby. I didn't even need to use my nose to know where the blood scent was coming from. I stepped out in front, leading the others. I knew exactly where we'd find the source. Behind me, Tabby gave a small shriek. Arran thumped several times, spinning around as though something was going to leap out from the darkness around us. The stench wasn't as overpowering as the bridge. I had a brief flash of hope. It wasn't as much blood, so maybe they were alive? Look! I traced a pointing finger. She was shining a torch on a collapsed shelf, partially blocking a smaller side passage. The blood trail led down it, with an awful smear on the side of the shelf. It hadn't been moved as far as I could tell since we'd last been here. Whoever was bleeding ducked under it, and my stomach turned at the thought. Maybe even crawled. Dana seemed to snap out of her initial shock and march towards the corridor, now calling out openly. I followed her, joining my voice to hers. We ducked under the heavy shelf and followed the trail, still calling out when my torch beam fell across something on the floor. No. No, it can't be. I barely even registered the shrill shriek from behind. I didn't know if it was Tabby or Gale at first until Gale barged past me, following Dana as she ran to June's side. I knew she was dead. The glassy, vacant eyes and even her pose told me without a doubt. Sound drifted away. I couldn't focus on the urgent voices of Dana and Gale. I felt the sensation in my limbs go numb, though my very consciousness was retreating, making itself smaller and huddling in my chest. Just a short while ago, she'd been sitting with me, talking, full of life. And now, before going to that cursed room, I'd never seen a dead body before. Been bad enough seeing anonymous corpses wrapped up, even Hagen frozen in death. But to see June, such a sweet lass, like this. My awareness started to trickle back. I heard Dana and Gale. Their initial frantic movements and words had faded to a grim finality. Is she? He knew, as did I. But he also needed to ask, to remove the doubt. God. For a moment we simply stood in silence. Gail got up to run to Tabby, who'd been standing with her hands covering her muzzle in horror. She tearfully whimpered and fell into Gail's arms as her sister hugged her tightly. Carefully, gingerly, a step closer, Dana had one hand over her eyes, clearly trying to keep her own grief in check. Dana, can you tell what happened? What do you fucking think? Someone fucking murdered her, and now... Arran, that's enough. He sputtered, looking back at her, then at me before his anger melted into sorrow. Sorry. I'm sorry. I knelt by Dana's side as the others clustered around us. She was stabbed in the abdomen with a blade, but the weapon is missing. As she spoke, Dana continued to examine her. She was methodical, cold even. I imagine this wasn't her first time having to do this, though I doubted with the body of someone she knew. She doesn't have any defensive injuries. She was stabbed directly from the front, a single blow. She was either taken by complete surprise or she knew her attacker. The silence descended was thick enough to cut. Based on her body temperature, I doubt this happened more than an hour ago. The door had her handprints on it. She might have been in that room when she was attacked. After a moment of thought, Dana stood quickly and marched towards the doorway. The rest of us exchanged worried glances before following her. Dana was examining the blood-stained door carefully, passing a torch over the ghastly handprints. The handles are covered in blood. Look. She pointed to the single handprint on the wall beside the door. She tried to close the door, tried to seal it with the handles. That door can be opened from the inside. Unless June had a key to lock it, securing the handles would have kept someone inside for long. I don't think she expected to. She's probably just trying to buy herself time to escape, but... She suddenly glanced at the floor, shining a torch around as if looking for something. All of you, look for the murder weapon, any knife or blade. Quickly we did so, spreading out and scanning the floor for signs of any kind of weapon. Minutes passed. We didn't speak at all. Everyone focused on trying to find the weapon someone had used to end June's life. Anything? Nothing. Either they took it with them or hid it somewhere. Given the amount of blood, the blade must have been pulled out shortly after she was stabbed. Oh God, do you think we come here quicker? No. She was firm but gentle as she turned to face Tabby. The wound was fatal. Even if we'd found her immediately, she would have bled to death in minutes. But... Tabby... She embraced her sister, putting her head against her shoulder. Even if I'd been here and had bandages, it wouldn't have helped. She bled to death internally. She'd have needed surgery, and even then we wouldn't have had time. Tabby simply wept softly, whimpering. The dawning horror of the scene was starting to unfold in my mind. June, for whatever reason, approached the door. Someone was waiting for her. Perhaps she knew, or maybe she was caught by surprise by whoever was lying in wait. She'd have had no time to react to her killer thrust a blade into her while cruelly ripping it back out. Her only instinct at that point was to try and trap her murderer. Only then did she try to escape. Was she trying to secure her escape? Or maybe to ensure her killer was caught? What went on in her mind during those final, awful moments? June died, alone and afraid. So what do we do? If June is dead, does that mean the others... Well, I think we can discount the idea Joseph was killed by an animal. But why June? Who could possibly want to hurt her? The sounds of rapidly approaching paw steps made us swing round to shine our lights the way we come. 3 figures were sprinting towards us, torch beams dancing back and forth. Guys, we heard screaming, what? Oh my God, is that blood? This time wasn't just Dana who viewed her with naked suspicion. Even Tabby and Gail gave them accusing looks. Who got hurt? Oh no. Not hurt. Murdered. The 3 of them exchanged horrified looks. How? He folded his arms, not looking sternly at Dana. She was stabbed near that door. She bled to death fleeing her attacker. Oh God, I think I'm going to be sick. And true to his word, he gripped his muzzle, made a stomach-churning retching noise, and dashed off to a side passage, whereupon he loudly threw up. Jesus, this can't be happening. Surprisingly, it was Tabby who asked the question I was waiting to hear from Dana. Where the fuck were you guys? Sharif surprisingly didn't hesitate to launch into an explanation. I needed to be alone. Think things over. Tobias, seeing him like that is not been easy on my nerves. And before you ask, no, I do not have an alibi. That is the disadvantage of taking time alone to grieve. I ran into these two shortly after I heard a scream. He pointed to Rufus and Stefan, who both looked very uncomfortable at the attention. And just where were you thinking things over? Tobias' quarters. His tone was firm, though his eyes dropped. Guilt or grief? Dana stared at him with her laser-like gaze. I could see the calculations going on behind her eyes. Sharif's excuse was plausible, reasonable even. That didn't change the fact he had no one to vouch for his innocence. And you? Oh, come on. Why in God's name would I hurt you? She's as cool, as sweet and kind, and I... Answer. The fucking question. With the last word, she barked at him, causing nearly everyone, Stefan included, to jump. For some reason his eyes seemed to jerk in Sharif's direction. I was researching. What is that supposed to mean? What happened here? Trying to find clues, you know? And I assume you, Rufus, can't vouch for his whereabouts? No, sorry, kid. He gave an apologetic look to Stefan. Look, thought I heard something, okay? So I didn't return to the mess hall straight away. We shouted on you, all of you. You cannot possibly be convinced that the four of you screaming your names just went unheard, but Tabby screaming once got your attention. But this is nuts. What reason would any of us have to kill June, of all people? Revenge. A shocked pause as everyone stared at her. Joseph was the Sylvia's bosun. Sylvia was a technical shit show, and that's directly responsible for us being stranded here. Any one of us had a motive to kill him. And June, God rest her, was clearly in a relationship with him, but she was Sylvia Crew as well. There is a rather large flaw in your reasoning. He gave her a pointed look. Well, the motive for killing Joseph is plausible. The motive for killing June is utterly specious. She was in love with Joseph, but that's it. She wasn't an engineer or a mechanic. Yeah, I agree. That'd be like, I don't know, killing the girlfriend of the guy who ran over your mama. We simply don't have enough information to speculate as to why June was killed. Do we have the murder weapon? No. Whoever stabbed her pulled it out, causing her to bleed to death. I swear I saw a pang of something. A twitch of the eye. Maybe the mental picture was upsetting enough to crack his facade. A discomfort silence settled as we each scanned our companions. Last time, we hadn't solid evidence Joseph had been deliberately killed by one of us. With June, that no longer applied. Someone here in this group was a murderer, more than likely a double murderer. We looked for the weapon. It's not here. Either the killer took it or hid it somewhere. Should we look for it, for evidence? I doubt it'd matter. A small-bladed weapon can be hidden anywhere here. As for suspects, well... She gave a pointed look to the three formerly missing members of our group. Stefan looked affronted and was about to speak when Rufus cut him off. Do you know how long ago she died? The time since her leaving the mess hall now is about an hour and a half, give or take. That being the case, Rufus... She fixed him with a piercing stare. Even though you didn't leave the mess hall until after the others, that still leaves you as a suspect. He looked frustrated, maybe wanted to protest, but surprisingly... I can't argue with that. Wait, are you? No, of course I ain't, dumbass. He rounded on Arran and quickly shut up. Again, I don't have an alibi, neither of these two. There's another possibility. He then stared directly at Tabby. You said you saw someone before, right? In the engine room? Now wait just a minute. Cale, let me talk for myself. Yeah, I did, or at least I think I did. You never answered before, but what made you think this person you saw wasn't one of us? Well... She bit her lip and clung a bit tighter to Gale. I saw boots, pants too. The boots were dark, so I couldn't really make out what kind of feet they were. But they were definitely wearing blue pants, navy blue. Instantly, every eye in the room scanned each other. I felt a surge of relief when I realized none of us were wearing navy blue trousers. But then... no, it couldn't be. I felt sick, like a vice was crushing my stomach, nearly forcing its contents up my throat. If what Tabby saw was accurate, then it isn't impossible there is another person on board. He gave Dana a sneer of contempt. Unless you wish to elaborate on what motive any of us three would have to kill June, especially in such a brutal and callous manner, I would posit it is just as valid a theory. I expected Dana to explode, tell him how insane it was. The idea of a survivor hunting us was just a desperate throw of the dice by people who suspected at least one murder. But instead, she looked stunned. She looked away with a bizarre expression on her face. Stefan looked away, seemingly fixated on some spot on the floor with a distant look. Rufus looked troubled but thoughtful, while Sharif's smugness melted away, leaving sadness. Arran also seemed disturbed, glancing at Tabby as though to get confirmation of her seriousness. I'm going to check that room. Without waiting for a response, she turned on her paw and marched to the blood-stained doorway, wrenching it open and disappearing inside. For some reason, Rufus and Sharif both looked agitated and followed straight after her, with Stefan, after offering a come-on gesture to us, disappeared inside after them. Dana was already going over the room, as Rufus and Sharif looked around uncertainly. I could clearly see Rufus was agitated. His eyes kept scanning the weird stone artifacts. Sharif, on the other hand, kept glancing at Hagen. Once again, that overwhelming sadness crept across his face. Seeing his friend like that, it couldn't be easy. She didn't have any defensive wounds. Also, almost no blood inside the room itself. She must have been standing right at the doorway. So she's either taken by surprise or she trusts her attacker enough to get close. Did you notice Professor Hagen? Look at his hands. He pointed to the frozen corpse in the corner. Don't think it looks like he's holding something. Maybe... He started to make his way towards his body when... Alright, that's about enough of this. Everyone jumped. I've just about enough of this Sherlock bullshit. We need to focus on rescue. And stay away from Tobias. He isn't some object for you to mess around with. Stefan quickly recoiled, raising his hands in reassurance. Now, just you wait a goddamn... To my surprise, he stepped towards her, cracking his knuckles. The first time, despite the constant headbutt, I'd seen him physically threaten her. Jesus, we're really falling apart here. Okay, let's get this straight. We stay together. We get that god-fucking-damn battery and we fix the radio. We call for help and we batten down the hatches and wait for the cavalry to arrive. Any fucking objections? We've been over this. We need to find Chance. We can tell Rescue to find us. Didn't June say... June said they could track us. We need to keep broadcasting long enough to get them effect. And that means relying on the battery to have the charge to keep it running. That's assuming anyone can hear us. They interrupted by a harsh cry of alarm from Stefan. No! 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 He was kneeling over one of the bodies that lay wrapped near the door. He'd shifted the bandage around the victim's face, revealing... Oh. Oh no. Alex! His shrill cry sent a shiver down my spine. His frantic, desperate terror of the covering revealed, bit by bit, the decayed, decrepit face of someone who had clearly been a possum in life. The fur was patchy and the flesh was drawn tight around bone. The resemblance was unmistakable. This isn't happening. This isn't happening. This can't be happening. Stefan, it's okay. We're here for you. Just... No! He stormed to his feet, and for the first time with balled fists and a furious snarl, he looked as dangerous as Rufus. That can't be him. It just can't. Stefan! No, this is a trick. He clutched his head, and for anyone could stop him, he bolted, nearly bowled over Gale and Tabby and vanished into the bowels of the ship. My stomach wrenched as I saw the withered face of Stefan's brother. He'd been here the entire time. Gale looked ready to run after him, but Dana shouted, Gale, stop! Gale turned, looking furious. Weren't we supposed to stay together, or does Stefan not count? Do you seriously think Stephen is going to listen to you? You can simply tell me everything is going to be okay if he just found his brother's corpse. Think he's just going to walk back here after a shock like that? Gail looked livid, opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Can I also remind everyone that he's one of the 3 people here who could have been responsible for June's murder? As much as she tried to maintain her righteous anger, Gail looked away guiltily. Going after him will only put you in danger. We need to stick together now more than ever. Rufus shifted, now aware of the suspicious glares from the remaining group. We should go to the bridge. Find Charles. We can plan our next move after that.
No way. We'll get the battery first. Charles don't mean jack if we ain't got power.
Wait, are we missing someone? We all looked around before realising Sharif was missing again. I half expected Rufus and Dana to go mental again. For some reason, they both simply exchanged glances. So, no search party this time? Sharif was also one of the 3 possible suspects in June's murder. Doesn't that mean either him or Stephen could be in trouble? Do you want to go look for them? Arran grimaced and looked away.
Look, fine. Why don't we split into 2 groups? One goes to the bridge, the other goes to check the battery.
Look what he added when he saw Dana's tail swish dangerously.
Just to check. See if it really does have a charge. Since you're dead 7 using the fucking vehicle, might as well see if the vehicle can even run anymore, right? Besides, the White House cleared up for now. If we're going out there to check, now is the best time for another blizzard sets in, right?
Dana glared spitefully. It was clear she didn't trust him, but she couldn't deny his point.
Garrett, Tabby, you're the brains of this outfit. You can come with me to take a look. Everyone else can go to the bridge.
Fine, but no one splits from their group, got it? Don't care if you need to shit in the corner. No one is alone at any time. Rufus gave a nod. Everyone's watched him closely. They were clearly the 2 most in charge, I guess. The army vet and the detective. Normally that would make for a pretty good leadership team if they weren't constantly butting heads. Wait, what about June? There was a moment of silence where he remembered her body, only a few feet away. Should we leave her there? You know, to preserve the crime scene? I'll cover her. Preserving the crime scene doesn't really matter at this point since we've all been over it.
Well, I guess I can carry her to that room and lay her out with the others.
He gestured to the makeshift morgue, but Tabby gave an indignant tut. We should take her to the hospital. At least give her a bed. Not just stack her with the others like some anonymous nobody. We all knew her, at least for a little while. I think she served better than to be treated like we didn't. Both Dana and Rufus shifted, looking crestfallen. Gail gave her sister a small but undeniably proud look.
All right. Once you take a look at this battery situation, check for the charts. I'll carry her up. Might do nice of you, Tabby. I'm sure she'd thank you.
He added with a warm smile, but Tabby still looked close to tears. Dana grabbed an opaque tarpaulin. She then went down to the blood-stained corridor and the rustling of the sheet could be heard. When she reappeared, she looked haunted but gave us a firm, stoic nod. Grimly, we moved into our respective groups and, without any parting words, split up. We moved slowly and cautiously, Rufus taking the lead. Tabby at first tried to keep her cool, but after only a few minutes in near total blackness, she scooted closer and hooked an arm through mine. Sorry. She spoke in a whisper, her apologetic tone nearly buried under the bubbling panic. I gave her my best reassuring smile. It's okay. Just one flight of stairs and went back on the main deck. It's getting hard to breathe. Oh fuck. She did look she's going to freak out. I'd underestimate just how much her strength and presence Gale was to her. Listen, try this. Take a deep breath while counting to 3. I demonstrated, loudly sucking in air. Took her a moment to follow my lead. She eventually did in a single whooping breath that lasted probably less than 1 second. I ignored it, concentrated on giving the gist rather than getting it perfect. Hold it, well, count it to 4. I spoke in a harsh whisper, loud only enough air to make the words. I nodded her in time to the count. 3, 4. Then I loudly but slowly exhaled. Then breathe out, counting to 5 while you exhale until your lungs are empty. I gave her hand a pat in reassurance, and she tried to follow suit, but ended up blasting air to her lungs in a frightened yelp. I can't. It's okay, just keep trying. Remember, it's in, count to 3, I inhaled. Hold. Count to 4. I tapped her hand in time to the count. Out. Count to 5. I breathed the words I exhaled again, tapping her hand to the count. Took a few shaky breaths, but Tabby eventually sucked air noisily in. This time it was much closer to 3 seconds. While she held her breath, I counted for her, tapping her hand once again. Once I got to 4, I nodded. With an equally shaky breath, she exhaled, emptying her lungs much quicker than 5 seconds. But almost as soon as she was done, she started again, sucking air in. She continued, with a little of my guidance, till we reached the main deck once again and found ourselves near an exterior door. The moment we reached the door, Tabby flung herself through it out into the eerie, not quite twilight, gasping and bent over. I was afraid she'd throw up.
You alright, kid? Can't imagine that was easy on you.
He placed a sympathetic hand on her back, otherwise allowed her to recover on her own. Fine. I just need a minute. I was impressed, envious even. Here was someone deathly afraid of the dark, yet she'd accompanied us below decks on his only torchlight. She'd managed to keep it together.
Okay, kid. Sorry to hurry you, but time is the essence here.
Yeah. I'm okay. She straightened up, still looking pretty queasy. When our eyes met, she gave me a small, weak smile and mouthed, "Thank you." I admit, it made me feel warm inside. When she'd recovered, she led us towards the superstructure, then around it and toward the stern. I glanced out over the side of the Arran, trying to see the horizon. The flurries of snow made it impossible to see more than a few kilometres. I'd not had time to really take it in back when I'd first arrived, which, at this point, felt like a month ago. Just how desolate this place was. We really were just lost. Nothing and no one around for God only knows how far. Here. There, neatly parked in a small garage, was the snowcat. Boxy and bright red, it was covered in a layer of snow and frost. It's about the size, height-wise at least, of a single-decker bus. Its cabin was separate from the bulky-looking rear compartment. It sat upon long tracks that were a good couple of feet in height. Small windows in the sides of the compartments suggested it might be designed for living in, or at least to work in, like a camper van, I suppose. It looked pretty intact. No sign of damage or decay. But of course any machine can look fine on the outside. Tabby approached and studied it for a while, circling it and shining a torch on certain areas before squatting to examine the tracks.
Well, what's the verdict?
Rufus couldn't keep the anticipation from his voice. I was feeling the same. A working vehicle would be a massive stroke of fortune. Well, it's hard to say for sure. I need to take a closer look, maybe give it a test drive, but... She straightened up and gave us both the biggest smile she'd had for pretty much as long as we'd been on the Arran. It's in pretty good condition. My heart lifted. Rufus nodded, looking confident.
Fantastic news. Now, about the battery.
Probably in the front. Let's take a look. We clustered around the cabin in front and where, on a regular car at least, its engine would be. The front of the vehicle was almost completely flat. After a moment of examination, Tabby pulled the cover. The front panel of the snowcat lifted and swung upwards, revealing a rather sleek-looking grey box that was neatly nestled into its housing. Judging from what little I knew of vehicles, I guessed it was the battery. Well, there it is. It looked pretty hefty. My skinny arms wouldn't be able to carry it far. I doubt even Tabby helping me would make much difference.
So, how do we know if it's got any juice?
Well, I'll need some tools. A multimeter could give me an idea. Help me look. We scattered around the garage. The door led back into the ship's interior. The second led into a long corridor-like room that was lined with machinery and equipment. A lathe, a pillar drill, welding tools, and a huge array of hand tools like spanners, wrenches, screwdrivers, hammers. Tabby, though, paced along the shelves with purpose, peering at each cluster of gizmos before reaching out to grab one. Score! It was indeed a multimeter. It looked pretty worse for wear, but it's hard to tell whether that was due to usage or subsequent long-term lack of it. She turned the dial and gave a happy thumbs up. We followed her back to the snowcat.
Man, things are looking up at last.
He clapped his hands together and stood back, watching Tabby as she fiddled with the battery. I don't celebrate yet. She brushed ice from the components. Like Garrett said before, the cold might have helped slow the battery's charge decaying, but could still be empty. Plus, if there is a charge, the battery being cold might make it difficult to actually get anything out of it. I hate to ask, What if we use the snowcat to charge it? Just run the engine for a bit. Well, that would also require the engine to be working for the tank to have gas. And if the battery's completely dead, we need the power source to jumpstart it.
Which ought to bring us back to square one.
If he's trying to keep the disappointment out of his voice, he wasn't doing a good job. We watched her work for a while. Rufus getting increasingly visibly frustrated. Finally banged a fist against the metal wall, causing Tabby to jump.
Damn it. June hadn't wandered off.
None of us could have predicted what would happen. Why would someone hurt her of all people?
Why would someone hurt any of us?
He started to pace, gesturing absently.
Whatever anyone thinks of Joseph, killing him for screwing up the Sylvia just feels, I don't know, too much. Especially with all that blood. That was more than just an argument that got out of hand. And June. Damn, there's even less reasons to hurt her. But they're the first ones killed. Just don't make any goddamn sense.
Something about his words made me deeply uneasy. When you say first ones, it sort of implies you think there's going to be more. He stopped pacing and fixed me with a stern gaze.
Is there anything Sharif has said that makes a lick of sense, so we can't deny the possibility of someone else being aboard?
I hoped, prayed even, my shitty line skills only extended to my talk and not my expressions. Someone else was aboard. I needed to find a way to talk to him, ideally before someone else found him. You really think someone could live this long in this place? We haven't found any signs of life. And besides, why would they kill us?
No, that's just it. Being trapped alone in this hull could drive anyone insane. Not Hannah, she's rock solid. Nothing can shake her.
You haven't said much about her except she was in the Navy, was it?
Well, that's why she started out. Got her training with her into civilian service. Always a ball buster when needed. She'd never let things get out of hand unless... Well, guess it don't matter at this point.
His tone and expression was odd. It wasn't sadness as far as I could tell. In fact, I couldn't really interpret it at all. What about you? Why'd you leave the army? He looked surprised at first, then I noticed his fists clenched and his eyes narrow.
Oh, I just did, that's all.
From his tone, I filed that topic under leave it the fuck alone. Rufus, could you do me a favour? Rufus blinked, seemingly remembering her presence.
Sure, shoot.
Could you check the workshop for any spare batteries?
You're running low on your flashlight. I think I have some spares.
No, I mean... Well, actually, I wouldn't mind having some spare flashlight batteries. Let's talk about one of these. She wrapped the snowcat battery with a knuckle. If you have any spares lying around, we might not need to worry about tuning between the radio and having a working vehicle.
Well...
He glanced toward the workshop doorway. It's only a few dozen meters away, but out of sight of us, and we of him. Please, I'm almost done, John. I need Garrett's help. Our eyes met for a moment. It was pretty clear there's a bit more going on. I guess I was better at spotting liars than being one.
Right, all right. But now you move from this spot, okay? I'll be 5 minutes.
Don't worry, wandering off is the last thing on our minds right now. I gave him a reassuring smile, but he didn't return it. He turned and stalked off to the workshop. Once he slipped through the door, we were alone. Tabby sighed and leaned against the snowcat. Can I ask you something?
Sure, what?
Do you really think there could be someone else on board? She looked me straight in the eye. There was that intimidating intensity she'd had at the start of the voyage. That piercing, analytical look. I don't know. But you must have an opinion, even if you don't know for sure. I gritted my teeth. Lying directly would only get me into trouble, and Tabby was sharp. Whatever else, I had to assume it wasn't Connor who was responsible at the moment. I knew him enough that cold-blooded murder wasn't in his nature. Knew that violence most certainly was. And if Connor didn't know of anyone else who survived... I don't know what to tell you, wee man. I don't remember much. The ship, it was falling apart. The crew, at least. I think Dr. Waters. She wanted me for something. A mission. I had to go somewhere. No. I had to take something somewhere. I think it's possible. You said you saw someone who wasn't wearing clothing that matched any of us? She nodded, her expression unreadable. It's just... I find it hard to believe one of us would kill Joseph, and especially June. Doesn't mean they wouldn't. Honestly, Garrett, how well do you know anyone here? I raised an eyebrow. She started to sound like Dana. Not at all, really. I had to admit it. Everything about these people I learned from a couple of days on the Sylvia. I was mostly either arguing about the Arran, discussing our lost loved ones, or idle chit-chat. Did I really say for sure none of them could kill? She watched me for a moment before looking away, lost in thought. Your turn. I folded my arms. Turnabout was fair play, after all. I can't deny what I saw in the engine room. Just for a moment, but... Is it possible you mistook something else? The place was full of machinery and it was dark. I'm not an idiot. Being scared of the dark doesn't give me brain damage. I can tell the difference between a pair of legs and a turbine. Then you understand what you're implying, right? An Arran crew member who only survived was standing in the engine room with you and Gale and said nothing. She looked away again, looking deeply uncomfortable. I'm sure the thought creeped out even more than I. Do you think whatever noise lured Rufus always an attempt to get him away from us? Maybe. Maybe your scream scared them off, whoever they were. She grimaced. It sucks, you know, nyctophobia. Gail thinks I've just seen things I've scared. I know she means well, but it's just humiliating, like I'm a kid who woke up from a nightmare. I love her to bits, but she can drive me insane sometimes. Oh, by the way, thanks.
Huh? For what?
That breathing thing you showed me, it actually helped. Oh, that's fine. I learned it off a friend.
Smooth, Garrett.
She sensed my hesitation, but thankfully pretended not to notice. Anyway, she get back to work. Rufus will be back soon. Yeah, what's it you wanted me to do again? Well, the battery has a charge. In these conditions, it's hard to gauge its actual capacity. Try the engine. If we can start it up, that's a pretty good sign. I nodded and moved to the cabin, clambering in. Garrett, are you forgetting something? I leaned out the door to see her dangling a set of keys. Oh, right, sorry. I know you're sparking all. You don't need to hotwire it. She gave me a cheeky grin and tossed the keys to me. I fumbled them, but managed to catch them before I embarrassed myself further. I leaned in, inserted the key, gave a silent prayer and twisted. The engine sputtered. I kept the key turned, hoping. I tried again. More sputtering. My heart fell. Maybe the fuel was empty after all. Our possible escape vehicle useless. I gave it another twist.
Holy shit.
All right. She punched the end, giving me a big grin and thumbs up. I could resist returning the gesture.
Damn, I never thought starting a vehicle would give such a rush.
Can you check the fuel gauge?
I peered at the dashboard that's now lit up. The glowing orange needle had swung over the lights. I felt my heart beating in horror.
It looks to be about 2/3 full. Wow. Okay, turn it off.
I turned the key, even within the ignition. I slid out of the chair and dropped the foot or so from the cabin to the deck.
Damn, I can't believe it worked.
Oh, ye of little faith.
I winked and gave her a toothy grin. She gave me a friendly punch on the arm. I was worried it'd be empty. Maybe the diesel had gone bad. Well, I guess the cold was an advantage after all. Gone bad? Fuel goes bad after a period of time. In this case it's diesel, so it lasts a bit longer, but anyway, it doesn't matter. This is great. Our celebrations were interrupted by the sounds of hoofsteps rapidly approaching before Rufus skidded out of the workshop door and stared at us in astonishment. Then he gave us a big beaming grin.
Well, I'll be damned.
He jogged over to us before pulling us both into a firm and slightly painful hug.
I said you kids with the brains to the outfit, and boy did you prove me right. Got ourselves a working set of wheels.
We both wheezed as Rufus compressed us against his powerful body. Yeah, cool. Rufus, a little tight. He finally let go, beaming at us proudly.
Well, I thought I'd be bringing the move down. I said I couldn't find any spare batteries, but you guys more than made up for it.
Does this mean you still want to use this one? She jabbed a thumb in the snowcat. Rufus's grin faded and he looked thoughtful.
You know, maybe Dana's got a point. Because we know this thing works.
There's no reason we can't go check the others and come back for it. It's not going anywhere, right? He stared at the snowcat for a while, pondering. Finally, with a big sigh, he spoke.
All right, we leave it for now. We go check up on the others.
How much fuel do we have? About 2/3 of a tank.
Good, but not great. If it comes down to it, we'll need to look for more.
But he clapped his hands together and looked much brighter and energized.
Okay, let's go check on the others and give them the good news.
Tabby and I exchanged excited grins. Finally, things were looking a little brighter. I wasn't used to being in such high spirits ever since getting stranded here. With the blizzard dissipated, at least for now, the interior was a bit brighter too. It felt less oppressive. Even Tabby seemed less wary. We even chit-chatted on the way up. As we got to the foot of the steps leading to the bridge, we heard raised voices, specifically Dana and Arran's. We gave each other worried looks before hurrying up the stairs. Can't be any other reason. That is bullshit, and you know it. They paused as three of us bundled through the door. Dana was standing a couple of feet from Arran, jabbing a finger at him in accusation, while Arran was balling his fists, leaning forward in fury.
What is going on? What's all the ruckus?
She's trying to blame Carrie for the fucking chart's being wrong, as if her Captain Daddy was just as blameless. Who else would have responsibility for this? Not the navigator, surely. So what? Was McGregor just sat on his fat arse the entire time? Enough. For God's sake, this isn't helping.
Can someone please tell us what the hell is going on?
He stepped forward, arms folded and glaring at the pair who looked moments from tearing each other apart. Dana and Arran paused, staring each other down as though daring near to try and pin the blame on them. Fortunately, Gale stepped in. We found a number of physical charts that have the Arran's route and position on it. Unfortunately, it's the wrong route, the fake one. We can't get a true position from them. Rufus looked like the wind had been taken out of his sails, and honestly I felt the same, from feeling great to shit in moments flat. What about the battery? Did you find out if it still works? Better. We found the snowcat itself has gas when we got the engine running. For a moment even the two of them looked surprised and even cracked a smile. But only for a moment. So now what? We have a vehicle, nowhere to go, and a radio, but nowhere to tell him where we are. What was it June said? Something about broadcasting and letting them find us by our signal? In order for that to work, they need to triangulate our signal. We'd also need to contact someone first they know to even try. At least someone in their family knows something about navigation. She muttered in under her breath, made sure it was loud enough for him to hear. The silence that followed was like the moment of calm before the tsunami. 1 minute it was dead silence. Arran charged at her with a feral cry, taking even Dana by surprise. He threw himself at her, screaming bloody murder. I was so completely taken aback it took several seconds before, without even thinking, I dove in and tried to separate them. Gale joined in, trying to prise the whirling mess of fists and arms apart. As frail as I was, I hooked my arms under Arran's armpits and hauled him back. Rufus coming to my aid after he got over his surprise. He screamed in rage, wriggling so hard I nearly lost my grip. Gale, followed by Tabby, placed themselves between the pair, holding Dana back who had been reduced to furious, incoherent snarls. Get the fuck off me! I've had it with you, bitch!
Christ almighty, settle down!
Arran was much stronger than I was, disregarding my teeth and jaws, of course, so Rufus finally had to wrench him from me and roughly shove him back, place himself between him and Dana. Dana shoved the two sisters away, snarling at them, eyes flashing with hatred. Fortunately, she stood her ground and didn't try to lunge at him.
God damn it, you two, this ain't helping.
No, fuck you, and fuck you too. He stabbed a finger at Dana, who immediately returned his glare with contempt. I've had it, with all of you. You're on your fucking own. He turned to storm from the room, angrily wrenching his arm free as Rufus tried to stop him.
Now just wait.
Arran, please wait. I'm done. Miss McGregor can channel her alky, gambling fucking daddy for her precious charts. Dana's look of contempt morphed into one of shock, like she'd been slapped. By the time it registered her to feel outrage, Arran was gone. She stared at the door for a moment, unable to comprehend that Arran would say such a thing. Then, ignoring the protests of Gale, she barged through the door and vanished. We stood in silence. My heart was racing, my arms and chest hurt from Arran's thrashing about. Gale looked mortified, looking back and forth between the rest of us. Tabby just looked numb. Rufus crestfallen. Despite not actually being a participant in the fight, my adrenaline was still spiked. I could feel my limbs trembling. I hated this feeling.
I guess I'll go see if I can find more food.
Wait, what? What about the battery or the radio?
I just need time, okay? He raised his voice in frustration, raising his hand in surrender. He turned and trudged to the door, pausing only for a brief moment. It seemed like he was about to say something. But then, as with Arran and Dana, he swung open the bridge door and left, his hoofsteps thumping on the steps leading back down into the Arran. Gail was distraught. She didn't even try to hide her tears. Tavi noticed and was instantly at her side, embracing her sister. They didn't exchange words. I don't suppose they needed to. I felt a pang of sorrow, not even jealousy, at their shared bond. And at the moment, I don't think I'd ever felt more alone. Listen, She spit from her sister, wiping her eyes and nose and valiantly trying to put on a brave face, a facade of normalcy. I want to go to the hospital to look through Mom's stuff. I can't think of a better place to try and get answers to what happened at the end. Part of me wanted to object, to point out we had a possible escape plan. I couldn't bring the battery to the bridge on my own. But the larger part of me was almost glad in a way. There was someone I needed to find, urgently, someone who owed me a lot of answers, and someone I couldn't meet if we were in a group. So, heart aching and with a built-in sense of dread, I simply nodded. Tavi tried to give me a reassuring smile. It went without saying that she would accompany her sister. Once the pair left, I was left alone. The stink of blood was different now. It had dried, oxidized. The only traces of Joseph we had left. Maybe it was for the best if we didn't find him. The thought of him being alive only to discover June's fate was just too much to bear right now. I trudged despondently to the door. I only had one goal for now. I had to find Connor. I didn't even know where to start looking. The last time Connor contacted me, I'd just woken up in the hospital. Gail and Tabby are investigating the place now, so I knew I couldn't expect to find him there. Calling out his name wasn't an option either. Anyone could be listening, or lurking. One of us was the killer. June had been murdered in cold blood. Joseph? Who even knew at this point? But someone on board was a murderer, and at this point I couldn't rule Connor out. I wandered the living quarters deck, barely even paying attention. As I passed by each cabin, I shone my torch through the door, assuming it was open to begin with. I started to get a sense of what had happened, or at least partially. Most of the cabins were accessible, their doors either closed but unlocked, open and intact, or, in many cases, wrecked. There seemed to be a pattern. The rooms that were wrecked generally had their doors destroyed, while the intact rooms mostly had their doors in one piece. The deep unease I was feeling only grew. Had people smashed their way into the cabins? Or broken in? My heart froze as I spotted something. An eye reflecting my torchlight, leaning out of a cabin. I stopped in my tracks. Was it the presence from earlier? Yeah, you're blinding me. I stared blankly as a familiar figure leaned out of a doorway, shielding his face with a hand. Connor, what are you... Shh, come here, quickly. He beckoned me while glancing around in a panicky state. His eyes were wide with fear. I approached cautiously, never taking my eyes off him until I was close to the door, when he vanished inside the cabin. This was one of the more intact cabins. A section of the ceiling had fallen in, revealing a wide gap with conduits and cables. The door was intact, even lockable. I knew that because the moment I crossed the threshold, Connor roughly grabbed me and pulled me inside, locking the door behind me. Hey, what are you... I was stopped by the sensation of warmth around me, arms pulling me close. Oh, fuck me, I heard the scream. Thought someone had gotten you, wee man. An avalanche of emotions swept across me. On the one hand, suspicion, hostility, even hate. My brother who had mauled me, and the man who could well be the killer we were seeking. For as he held me, I felt longing, an ache, one I thought I had long buried away. One I used to feel when he drifted away and turned to drink. When I realised it had been months and we'd barely spoken. When the only time I really heard his voice was during his shouting matches with our stepfather. Slowly, I allowed my own hands to rest on his back awkwardly, torn between embracing him and pushing him away. Sorry. He broke away and I almost thought I caught him wiping an eye. The ache stung even more. You need to answer my questions.
Hey, of course. That's why I came looking for you. I started remembering things about what happened, like... Connor. I held up a hand. He gave me a quizzical look, but I needed a straight answer on one thing. Did you kill June? He looked stunned at first, mouth open and closing as though finding the words. Then came the anger. You seriously think I just killed someone in cold blood? Just like that? A pang of a very familiar fear returned. I knew his temper, but I stood my ground, meeting his glare. Acting against the primal fear and stepping up to a man taller, stronger and provably more violent than me, I got into his face and asked again, Did you kill June? I braced, balling my fists and tensing for a swing or a lunge. The last time I confronted him like this was... Well, it was the last time I confronted him. It was also the last time I'd used my left eye. He met my gaze. A rumbling growl vibrated his chest as he drew himself up to his full height. I held steady. He glared daggers. His tail curled, and so did mine. A growl rumbled within me, too, as I squared off. If I said no, would you even believe me? Connor, I need to hear you say the words. For a moment more, he simply stood with eyes narrowed and fists clenched. Then he blinked, and just like that, the anger melted away. All that bravado evaporated. He looked tired. I can see how after what I did, you'd be sceptical. I would be too, to be fair. No, Garrett, I didn't kill June. I can't even imagine the reason why I would. If you have one, I'd love to hear it. It was his turn to be accusing, but I wasn't having it. She could have seen you, but the only thing you've been clear about is that you don't want the others to know you're here. Christ, Garrett. I didn't want him to see me because someone got killed. Just look at you. He gestures at me. You suspect me, and you're my brother. I have even less reason to kill one of your crew than you do. Then I want you to explain everything from the start. You owe me that at least. I can decide if I believe you. I had him on the back paw and he knew it. So in the back of my mind, thought occurred that if Connor had killed June or Joseph, I was in great danger right now. But something deep down told me he wouldn't. A part of me I couldn't explain and made no sense the more I considered it. I knew Connor. I bore the literal scars of his temper. Connor threw up his hands and gave a snarl of frustration. He paced, placing his hands on the back of his head as he turned from me, head dipped as though thinking. I swear I'm telling the truth when I say I can't remember much. There's just this gap. My memories are fine up to a certain point. And start there, for God's sake. Try to imagine how confusing this is for me. You appear on a ghost ship 2 years after she went missing, apparently none the worse for wear. And all you can say is, I don't remember. I'm trying, all right? He turned, giving me a more pleading look. Look, it must have been August. Yeah, we're en route to Greenland, or supposedly. I said before there are rumours we weren't where we're supposed to be. All outbound comms are cancelled. We told to route any calls or messages through Second Officer Dixon and Captain McGregor. And then we started breaking through an ice mass, a big one. The one we're trapped in, actually. He quickly moved to the window, looking out into the snowy landscape the Arran was entombed in. Aye, I remember it. Professor Hagen took a team out to take some samples. About a week later, they came back with loads of crates of stuff. They got shipped to the lab and the rest stored in the vault. The vault? The room with the spray paint. You know the one. Did you know Professor Hagen, Alex Golubev and several others had their dead bodies stored there? What? No, He suddenly winced, rubbing his temple. Hagen? He's unstable. Last I heard, he'd been confined to quarters. Inquiry said the Arran reported a crew member had died and their instruments were malfunctioning. Know anything about that? A death? Yeah. Someone from the expedition, I think. I think that's when things started going to shite. There was trouble. After Hagen, I mean. People started behaving oddly. I think I was confined to quarters. And yes, there were deaths. Violent ones from fights, I think. Was there a mutiny? These cabins look wrecked, like a riot took place. I don't remember, honestly. There's Dr. Waters. It was her and Marsh. Carrie Marsh, the navigator. I raised an eyebrow. They needed me for something, some kind of task, something they thought would help. About that time. He growled and slammed the bunk bed post. It's like right there, but the more I try to remember, the more it fades away. Next clear memory I have is after you guys were already here. I woke up in the storeroom below decks. That's all I see it. Everything that happened between Hagen returning and me waking up here is just... it's a blur. I watched him evenly as he turned to face me, looked imploringly at me, no doubt aware of just how unbelievable his story sounded. But he was here, before me, talking to me. All right. The word escaped as a sigh. I didn't have a way of confirming his story, at least not yet. What he had told me did align with what we already knew. The arrow was off course. It was more and more likely it was deliberate. Carrie being involved with some kind of mission with Dr. Waters was definitely suspicious. Maybe we should ask Gail about it. She said she'd be going to the hospital to look for clues. Look, I guess there's a lot to ask you to believe. I promise you I'm telling the truth. Hagen, he found something out there and I think it was important. Like what? What could he have possibly have found out in this place? I don't know exactly, but he felt it was important to take it home. That's all I can tell you. Listen, there'll be time to try and unravel this later. How'd you get on with the radio? Is it working? I narrowed my eyes. How did you know about that? It's not like you guys have been quiet about it. Well, I think I fixed the radio. We have a working battery you can hook it up to, but everyone is just... I trailed off, making a helpless gesture. People arguing. Not just arguing. I think Arran and Dana are almost as focused on whether Carrie or the captain were to blame as on escaping with their fucking lives. Wait, Alan Marsh, her brother. And Dana McGregor, Bill's daughter. Bill? Aye, Captain Bill McGregor. Well, aye. Apparently they both got a load of hate from people. They blame the fell on Carrie and the captain. You think they have something to prove? I know they have something to prove. The issue is they keep getting into arguments about it. Well, I don't know what to say. You know them better than I do. Well, listen, you need to get the radio working to get help. Otherwise none of us are getting home. I'm trying, but I need... He quickly waved his hands and made a shh. For a moment we both stood in silence, strained to hear. Then... Is someone in there? Oh, fuck. Of all people at all times. Connor gave me a fearful look and gesticulated to say, now what? We glanced around, trying to find somewhere to hide him. The cupboard was full of clothes which might hide him if we took them out, but it was an obvious place to search. The ensuite bathroom had nowhere to hide within. Even if we closed the door, it was also an obvious place to hide. Then Connor slapped my shoulder and pointed up at the ceiling. Garrett, I heard you talking. Let me in. Shit. Connor frantically gestured to me to help me up into the gap in the ceiling. A thump at the door. I called out. Yeah, it's me, Stefan. Just give me a second. I interlocked my fingers and boosted Connor. He scrambled up in the gap, causing a dusting of frost and dust to scatter like a mini snowstorm. Are you okay? What's going on? Jesus, just a second, okay? With a shove, I pushed Connor's foot up and watched as he wriggled into the crawl space in the ceiling, his boots knocking against the side of the crawl space before vanishing into the darkness. I gave him a few seconds to try and crawl away as another thump at the door told me I couldn't wait any longer. With a deep breath, I unlocked the door and pulled it open, revealing an alarmed Stefan looking like he's about to attempt to kick the door in. He stared at me with confusion and alarm at first, but quickly his expression shifted to open suspicion. What were you doing in there? A million excuses, justifications and explanations whirled through my mind. Searching, for clues. I hope this sounded annoyed would mask the obvious lie. So then who were you talking to? I froze. The look on his face told me he wasn't even remotely convinced. Mind if I come in? It wasn't a question so much as a challenge. If I said no, it would immediately be suspicious. If I said yes... As nonchalantly as I could, I stood aside and beckoned him in. He strolled inside, giving me a lot of side-eye before pausing to observe the room. Besides the obvious gap in the ceiling, the room was in decent condition. More importantly, there weren't any places to hide beside the ceiling, just as long as he didn't look up. So, find anything? He pretended to be casual about it, but immediately started searching the few hiding places in the room. Watched him hesitate a moment before opening the cupboard, though preparing for someone to jump out. What? I was barely paying attention to his words. My blood must have been at least 50% pure adrenaline by volume. Took all my willpower not to glance at the ceiling. The clues, you know, the ones you were searching for? He wasn't even attempting to disguise his suspicion. His words dripped with sarcasm. He made a show putting his hands on his hips as though taking in the cabin's condition, while beelining to the door to the bathroom. Before I could respond, he flung the door open. I half expected him to shout, "Aha!" or something, but his face scrunched into confusion when he found nothing. I admit I felt a little satisfaction. You quite done? He glared at me. You didn't answer me. Answer what? What you were looking for. You know, the thing you definitely were doing behind a locked door while talking to no one in particular. Stefan had always been a bit odd and difficult to understand. We'd always been cordial, if not friendly, so far. Seeing him view me with naked suspicion and contempt hurt more than I thought it would. When I tried to think of something, my mind went blank. What could I even say? What excuse would satisfy him? I was looking for notes, you know, diaries, logs, that sort of thing. Sure. As he rolled his eyes, they stopped at the gap in the ceiling and I felt my heart stop. I was looking for... I nervously fiddled with my eye drops in my pocket as he slowly stepped towards the centre of the room, never taking his eyes off the hole. Medicine. Fucking great, Garrett. Medicine? That was what you could come up with? I glanced rapidly from Stefan's torch to the hole and back. I don't know how far Connor crawled in, but even a toe of his boot was visible. It was as I felt like my heart was going to explode when something flashed into my mind. Assuming the situation does not worsen, which we have enough chlorpromazine and to last another 6 weeks. Diazepam is nearly exhausted. I'd strongly object to the widespread use of flunitrazepam, particularly due to its potential for abuse. Diazepam. I had no idea why the note from the hospital came to mind. Wasn't even sure how it would help at all. But he did pause, give me a quizzical look. Diazepam? Why were you looking for that? Because... I grasped for an answer. I decided it was simple to just tell the truth. I didn't have a reason to lie to him about how I knew about those drugs. When I first arrived, before you guys found your way here and found me unconscious, I went to the hospital. I wanted to check for survivors, supplies, and for something to keep me warm, you know. He nodded, though he still looked suspicious. Well, I found a note there. It said something about drugs that the crew were using up really quickly. Diazepam was one. The other was... I racked my brains trying to remember. Chlorpromazine? No. Chlorpromazine, that was it. To my surprise, Stefan's expression shifted from growing suspicion to surprise. Chlorpromazine, are you sure? I am pretty sure. Why, do you know what it is? He looked away, caressing his chin in thought. Half of me was curious while the other was straining not to glance at the ceiling he'd been about to search moments ago. It's an antipsychotic. Why would they handing something like that out to the crew? I don't know. They're always too badly damaged to get anything else. I was hoping to find some in the cabin. Maybe see if there's a pharmacy script or a doctor's note that gives some hints. I reminded myself not to go too crazy with the embellishment. Lying wasn't my strongest skill, after all. Do you think the hospital could have more clues? Possibly. I think Gail and Tabby went there to search the place, actually. My heart left the chance to get him away from here, and, well, I was curious, too. Sorry about, you know... He gave an apologetic gesture. Just when I heard you talking, then you had the door locked. Oh, I sometimes talk to myself when I'm stressed out or scared. I locked the door and I searched so no one could sneak up on me, you know. I prayed he believed me. It wasn't an outlandish lie. In fact, it was pretty reasonable. Right? Tell you what, why don't we go speak to Gail? Maybe she's found something, if nothing else, we can ask about these drugs. Oh, okay. Once again, I restrained myself from glancing at the ceiling. If Connor was still up there, he'd heard us talking and would know and understand why I couldn't stay. Hopefully we could meet up again soon. Let's go. I bet it's warmer there than in here. He gave me a little smile. I felt a pang of sadness our previous rapport seemed to have strained, maybe beyond repair. Without looking back, I moved through the door and led him to the hospital. The warm glow of the lantern light framed the hospital door, and the sounds of hushed voices from within greeted us as we arrived. I gently rapped on the door with a knuckle. Gail? Tabby? You in there? A moment of silence then. Yes, we're here, Garrett. Come on in. Her voice had her usual chipper tone, which was a relief. I could use some of that upbeat energy right about now. The inviting light of the lantern was a stark contrast from the pale, ghostly light of our torches in the dark corridors. Tabby sat on the bed, browsing some files in a binder. Gail was sitting at the desk, poring over some papers. She gave me a smile when I entered, and looked surprised as Stefan followed after. Stefan, are you all right? You were just worried when you ran off. Stefan didn't answer. His lips were drawn tightly, though struggling to resist the urge to speak, and his gaze drifted away to nothing in particular. I couldn't blame him for not wanting to discuss it. Gail, can I ask you something? It's about a note I found when I first arrived. Oh, okay, sure. She was still watching Stefan with concern, but I gave her a stern look, trying to tell her with just my expression, don't push it. I moved to the desk where I'd found that note mentioning the drugs. The stacks of paper were new, presumably stuff Gail had found and started to read through. Give me a sec. Fortunately, I found the note quickly. Sitting exactly where I'd left it, only partly obscured by some of the papers Gail had dumped there. Here. Gail and Stefan gathered close as I placed the still damp and fragile note on the free spot on the desk near the lamp. This note mentioned a few drugs that had apparently been used by the crew, drugs they would specifically keep a note of how much they had. Oh, let me see. Chlorpromazine, diazepam, and flunitrazepam. Diazepam is a tranquilizer, I know that much. I'm not familiar with the other two. Well, chlorpromazine is an antipsychotic. It's used to treat a bunch of different things. It's commonly used to treat schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. Flunitrazepam is the generic name for Rohypnol. Wait, you mean they had... Gail looked irritated. Yes, that Rohypnol. Believe it or not, it actually has legitimate medical uses. It's anxiolytic and a sedative, among other things. So, 2 different drugs to treat anxiety, another to treat schizophrenia? Note is concerned about running low on those. Why they were getting through so much. Diazepam is common for anxiety and insomnia. I can see why they were hesitant to resort to Rohypnol. It's not really the same use case as diazepam. It also has more severe side effects. As for an antipsychotic, I may have an explanation. She gestured to a stack of files on the desk, one of which was open with a set of forms with typical unintelligible doctor's script on it. I was going through medical records, trying to get a cause of death for the people in that storage room, like Professor Hagen or Alex. My eye twitched, bracing for a reaction from Stefan. Gail realised too late and looked like she's going to apologise, but... And? His voice was flat. He folded his arms, watching with a blank expression. I don't know if this was more or less worried than if he'd started ranting or crying. Well, I didn't find anything yet. I did find a lot of prescriptions for those drugs. She laid out a stack of those forms, and sure enough, one after the other had diazepam, with a smaller but substantial portion having chlorpromazine. These prescriptions massively increased around late August, 2 years ago. That's only a couple of months before the Arran was reported missing. The ones with chlorpromazine mentioned sudden onset auditory and visual disturbances. They also mentioned short-term memory loss, and patients waking up in strange parts of the ship with no memory of how they got there. Apparently they tended to intensify in waves. Symptoms would suddenly manifest in extreme ways in multiple crew members all at once. Stefan wore an intense expression as she spoke, hanging on her every word. While she was talking, Tampy had stood to come over and look at the note too. Who is this Dixon? Since they're apparently taken orders to this Dixon, I'm assuming it's Rufus' sister, Hannah, the second officer. What's this plan the captain was insisting on? It almost sounds like whoever wrote this note wanted to contact the outside world but wasn't allowed to. We trailed off the many unanswered questions whirled around us. Tabby mentioning contact being cut off reminded me of Connor's words. He mentioned August being around the time they'd been cut off from communicating and routing everything through Captain McGregor and Hannah Dixon. If the Arran was up to something shady, that might explain cutting off contact with the outside world. The Connor said something about a mission with Dr. Waters and Carrie Marsh. I didn't want to risk arousing suspicion by just asking Gail. I couldn't think of an excuse to link Dr. Waters and Carrie to my brother they would believe, at least not without some kind of evidence. Stefan especially. Paranoid as he was, he's also pretty sharp, and I didn't want him to call me on it. I resolved to try searching you later when Gail and Tabby were gone. Garrett, I need to talk to you about something. He gestured to the door. The look on his face was serious but indecipherable. I had a deep feeling of unease about him. I gave Gail a shrug. When she met my eyes, I could see I wasn't alone being concerned about him. Even Tavi seemed to be watching him carefully. I shrugged at Gail, nodded at Stefan, and followed him out. We walked in silence. He led me away from the hospital. I was on edge, watching him like a hawk for any sign he might jump me. Where are we going? Somewhere we can talk. Well, that was ominous. I started rehearsing scenarios in my mind, different ways he'd attack or try to grab me. What about here? There's no one around. I can't be sure. Discontinuously led me back along familiar passages, and I realised we were heading back to the cabins. He spotted a cabin with an intact door and tried the lock. From the sounds of smooth clicking noise, I assumed it worked. He beckoned me before entering. Clutching my sturdy torch in hand, I cautiously followed. He rapidly searched the only available hiding places, the cupboards and the bathroom, before turning to me. All right, first things first. I need to show you a picture I took. I need you to tell me if you see anything out of the ordinary. Got it? I watched him carefully, scanning for signs of deception. He wasn't much stronger than I was, and I had my teeth if I really needed to wound. I couldn't sense any hostility, but he was definitely watching me with an expectant look. Okay, what picture? He reached behind to his hip and pulled out his camera. The long lens was missing, leaving only the boxy digital camera. I guess when he'd run back to retrieve it on the Sylvia, he'd actually managed it. He activated the screen on its rear, browsing for a moment before turning to let me see. Tell me what you see. I noticed a slight tremor in his voice. Even his hand seemed to shake a little. I braced myself for what he was going to show me. The screen showed a decrepit-looking room, bare metal, worn shelving to one side, very clearly from somewhere on the Arran. It was illuminated from the camera flash, giving the room an almost surreal look. I think I recognised it. It wasn't a room but a corridor. In fact, it was close to the sealed room where those bodies were stored. I squinted, scanning for anything out of place. For some reason, Stefan seemed to be getting increasingly agitated. I'm sorry, what is it I'm looking for? I finally straightened up and glared at him, getting tired of his weird behaviour. His expression was disappointed, upset, some expression I couldn't quite catch, but clearly wasn't pleased by my response. Not angry. In fact, if anything, closed his eyes, took a deep, shaky breath, and nodded solemnly. Nothing. It's nothing. That's what you were supposed to see. Stefan, you're creeping the fuck out of... But there's something more. Another picture. He tapped a button and a new photo slid into view. This one. What the fuck? It was the Sharif, clearly. It looked like he'd been shot while he's sitting down from behind and over his shoulder. Judging from the light in the table and the food, it had to be taken on the Sylvia. Actually, now that I thought about it, This was from Friday, the day after we departed Svalbard. Lunch. Yeah, but look what he's reading. And just like that, I heard that enthusiasm, saw the glint in his eyes. He stared at me with big, appealing eyes. A glimpse of the old Stefan I met back in that coffee shop. It was clear as Sharif's notebook. I remember the day clearly. And more to the point, I remembered how he'd acquired this photograph. So you did take a picture of his notebook. Sharif was right. His lips stiffened as he could clearly see where I was going. Sharif went mental at you because of it. You denied it. We believed you. I know I did, but... I stood up for you. We all did. You lied. Were you faking those tears as well? It seemed so small and petty now. Something about it cut right to my core. I defended him, believed him, comforted him, and the whole time he'd actually been guilty. No, I'm sorry. I really was scared. When Sharif reacted like that, I panicked. Look what he's reading. I squinted again, still fuming inside. It took a few moments for me to even understand what I was looking at. Symbols. About a cave? And wait. You remember those weird things in the room with Hagen's body? Those black stones with the weird markings? Symbols in the journal matched them. Look on the right page above the lizard statue thing. I could see a scrawled cross, a spiral, and a square. Hardly the most exotic of symbols. But then the lizard doodle reminded me of something I'd seen here right on the Arran. My blood ran cold. It was a crude drawing. With all the other context, I realised it had to be. I've seen this before. I tapped the lizard, showing it to Stefan. It was in the lab. Back when we all got together here for the first time, we searched the ship and I saw it there. Sharif was obsessing over it and the other stones. It's here? Yeah, but what does this mean? Don't you get it? I was right all along. Sharif knew about this, knew what the Arran was up to. He was lying to us the entire time. I bit my lip, tempted to give him some back chat about the whole lying business. But I couldn't deny it added up. There were no reports or evidence of the Arran digging up undiscovered relics before she vanished. In fact, Colin mentioned the Hagen had gone on an expedition and came back with those things after they'd gone radio silent. Wait a minute. During the blackout when we head into the Sylvia engines, Sharif said someone broke into his cabin. I glared at him, leaving the accusation unstated. He squirmed and gave me a pleading look. Why is that the thing that bothers you? Besides, I saw more of those symbols. And did you get a picture of those? I didn't have time. Sharif barged in, I only just hid myself in time. I pinched my eyes and gave her a frustrated sigh. Stefan was much more duplicitous than I'd given him credit for. What else had he gotten up to? All right. Let's say accept this. Let's say Sharif did know the Arran was doing stuff he shouldn't. How does this help us, and what do you want to do about it? We find Sharif and confront him. He finally pulled the camera away and slipped it back into his pouch. Then he folded his arms and gave me a determined glare. I pinched my eyes again, harder, and sighed again, also harder. First, we don't know where Sharif has gone. I think it's safe to say he's in the mood to be found. If we split up, it could take hours to find him, if at all. Second, if we found him, do you think he'd come clean? Assuming he didn't just deny everything, he could try and say those sketches came from other expeditions unrelated to the Arran. He looked furious and opened his mouth to protest, but I cut him off. Third, and far more importantly, can I remind you we are short on food, running low on basically everything else that's keeping us alive, and we should be concentrating on getting rescued. And go fix the damn radio. You're the electrical engineer here. Sharif knew about what happened on this ship and kept the truth hidden, even when there could have been an opportunity to help them. He lied to us. He brought us here on false pretenses, used our loved ones against us, manipulated us. As far as I'm concerned, he's an accessory to what happened to you and the deaths of everyone on board. I huffed. His allegations had weight behind them. A lot of things fell into place. He assumed Sharif been in contact with the Arran during the voyage. He was close friends with his mentor, Hagen. I didn't get the impression Sharif was faking his grief when he found his body. The chart he'd acquired was also very convenient. He'd said he'd found all GPS coordinates that matched his second route. We only had his word for that. All right, assuming I believe you, I still don't see why you need me. Because I don't really trust anyone else. His voice got small as he spoke, looking away with embarrassment. Rufus and Dana are both... they're acting weird. Arran is an asshole and a coward, and Gaylen's happy. And I don't mean this in a bad way. Won't be very intimidating when I confront him. You want me to be your fucking muscle? I know laughed in his face as the situation wasn't so bizarre, or dire. You stood up to him before. Hell, you stood up to Joseph, remember? That was, look, I'm not asking you to make a citizen's arrest or to break his legs or anything, just to be backup when I confront him. I thought about it for a moment. Sharif was terrifying when he was angry. He could probably break me in two if he put his mind to it. Look, before we go jumping the gun, I think we should at least try to confirm your theory. Now, how do you propose we do that? I know I've seen something like that lizard thing before, in the lab. If we go there, check the symbols on the stones, we can confirm if any match. If I can see if the statue thing I saw is the same as in the notebook. He huffed, looking frustrated. It's clear to me he'd been holding all of this in for a while, and he'd been suspicious of Sharif from the very start. All right, fine. We go to the lab, we check the statue, and we verify the symbols match. You never know. He was obsessed with those stones before. Might even be in the lab as we speak. Despite his earlier bravado, I noticed a little flicker of fear. All right, let's get this over with. He pushed past me to the door, unlocked it, and gestured to me to follow. We moved in silence. Every once in a while we paused to shine our torches down the corridor into a doorway, just in case. It occurred to me that, discounting the third party on board, Stefan was a possible murder suspect. He had no alibi for Joseph, so when the group was missing when June was killed. I wanted to hang back a bit, let him take the lead so I'd keep my eye on him, but Stefan didn't know the route to the laboratory. When we arrived at the door, I put a finger to my muzzle and gestured him to be quiet. We crept closer, strained to hear the sounds of anyone who might be within. After a few moments of silence, I reached out and turned the handle. With Stefan close behind, I slowly opened the door and entered, carefully scanning the room for signs of anyone else. Guess he's not here. Yeah. The relief in his voice told me that despite his desire to confront him, he's really not looking forward to being face to face with Sharif. So this is the lab? He passed his torch over the counters, machines and shelves, before spotting a large stone statue in the centre of the room. Damn, is that the one? He whistled under his breath. Yeah, there's more of the stones and tablets lying around. Maybe focus on the big one, see if he can match in the symbols from his notebook. He pulled out his camera and began carefully examining the markings. Part of me was starting to understand why Rufus felt so tense the last time he was here. Now that I was paying more attention to them and didn't have Sharif to gush over them, there was something vaguely sinister about these stone slabs and objects. Sharif said they were likely all handmade by different people, possibly offerings. All I could think of was, offerings to who? Or what? So, what do you think happened to the crew? They caused them to vanish. He grunted the affirmative. It's hard to say. The bodies in that storeroom suggest there was violence on board, but that doesn't explain where everyone else is. I know Sharif is involved. Hagen, too. Oh, shit, I just remembered. I reached in my pocket for a note that Rufus had given me the last time we were here. Rufus found this note. It was some guy, an engineer, I think. It was about Hagen. There. Could you tell Hagen to stop coming down the engineering decks for other reason? We keep finding him lurking in the accessways of the inner hull, scaring the shit out of my repair crews. He also hangs around like a weirdo, watches work on the props and turbine, and muttering to himself while giving us the creepiest look you can imagine. I'd asked the captain, but word is he's locked himself up in his cabin and using Dixon as his personal goon and errand girl. Out of professional courtesy, because I don't want blood on my hands, I'm giving you a chance to talk sense into him before I involve her. Copper. Weird. Hagen was hanging around the engine room. Also, what's this about the captain isolating himself? Dunno. It sounds like Hannah Dixon was feared by at least some of the crew. This guy didn't sound fond of her. I've been thinking about these drugs that are getting handed out. Maybe the crew contracted something. Contracted? You mean a virus? Or bacteria, or mold, who knows? The fact that so many of the crew experiencing psychological issues all at once can't be a coincidence. Wouldn't that mean we're also infected? We've been here at least a day, and we've all been exposed to these creepy stone things. He didn't take his eyes off the statue. I swallowed hard, now suddenly hyper-aware of my own breathing. Have you seen or heard anything weird? Could you be more specific? Like something you can't explain? I frowned at him, noticing he was now looking at me, having paused his examination of the artifact. Aaron mentioned he heard something on the bridge and scared the shit out of him. Oh, that, I was just, freaked out. We'd on the bridge while I was fixing the radio. All that blood just got to me, I guess. He resumed checking the statue. Now that he mentioned there'd also been the time in the mess hall. We hadn't been there to witness it. The memory provoked an intense paranoia. I remembered both moments. The overwhelming sense of dread. Not just thinking I might be in danger. For on some primal level, knowing I was, it was just outside the door. It was simply waiting for my guard to drop. Garrett? I jerked, so buried in my own thoughts I hadn't noticed he'd approached me. You okay? I could hear the slight note of suspicion. It rankled me and I shook my head. Fine. What is it? I found them. The symbols. They match. Suddenly intrigued, I followed him over to the statue. This one, here, just like this cross, and here, the square spiral shape. He pointed to the symbols, and sure enough, there they were. They weren't precise matches, but similarities were too much to be coincidence. Like I said, Sharif has some explaining to do. I couldn't really deny it. All these things added up Sharif knowing more than he ever should have, certainly more than he let on. At the very least, he lied to us about the circumstances that led him to start this voyage. Satisfied now? Are you going to help me find Sharif? Wait, I just remembered. Hagen's body. I thought I saw something in his pocket when June was... after we found June. So what, exactly? I think it might have been a book, maybe a journal. Sharif told me off, I could check, though. If Hagen had a notebook like Sharif... then it would be corroborating evidence. He looked thoughtful. But Sharif was with him for a while, back when we first found him, remember? It's possible Sharif took anything on him that might incriminate him. It's worth a look, though, right? He bit his lip, glancing at the door as though considering his options. All right, why don't you check it out while I look around here some more? You want to split up at a time like this? I'm not scared. I'm a suspect for June's murder already, remember? If anything, you should be thankful to be stuck with a potential killer. He did jazz hands at me sarcastically. Besides, there could be more notes or documents on what went on here. It's as good a place as any, right? All right, fine. I'll meet you in the mess hall when I've had a look. He fixed me with an intense look. Just be careful, okay? Aye, you too. He gave her a strange smile, maybe trying to be reassuring, but just made him look like he never expected to see me again. I turned, and with growing dread, departed that awful place once more. To be honest, going back to that place wasn't something I was looking forward to. Just the thought was enough to fill me with dread, and that was before June's murder. A sense of frustrated injustice bubbled within me. Why was I indulging Stefan's blame-throwing quest? We should be trying to get off this death trap. Dane and Aaron's pissing match had broken us up. Rufus and Dana's constant metaphorical dick-waving for leadership of our sorry group had paralysed us. At this rate, we'd never get anyone to take us home. I was overcome with trepidation as I approached June's murder scene. Her body was still there, a short way up the corridor, discarded like rubbish under a tarp. Who could do that? As I stepped to the door, I very carefully pulled it open and slipped inside, avoiding the bloodstains. The first time I'd been inside this place alone. The bodies laid out were as eerie as ever. I tried to avoid looking at Alex, whose face coverings had been removed by Stefan. Curiosity moved me to kneel by the body next to him. We never bothered to check their identities. It struck me as odd in retrospect. The only bodies on board, and only Stefan and Gail had bothered to check. As I noticed a small tag attached to the wrappings. T. Young? Was this the name of the deceased? It occurred to me that Stefan must have had a reason to check Alex's body. Turning and trying not to look at his face, I quickly spotted a similar tag. A. Golubev. So that's how he knew. That's what made him check. I moved between the bodies, checking the name tags one by one. Nothing I recognised. I guess I should tell the others next time I see them. Whether it'd be a reassurance, I found doubtful. I glanced over at Hagen. Without Sharif now, I guess I could take a closer look. I squatted by him. The look on his face was haunting. Had he died here alone, locked inside? And his pose, like he'd been holding something, but we hadn't seen anything like that, or even when we'd first investigated the room. Was this really the guy responsible for the Arran's fate? Why had he been locked in? Was this a cruel execution? Or was he left here by accident, forgotten as the rest of the crew evacuated? Seeing his frozen remains here in a makeshift morgue among some of his former crewmates, having apparently been sealed up and left to die, moved me to pity. No one deserved a fate like this. With a shaky breath, I reached for his pocket. The moment I touched it, I winced. The flesh underneath the fabric was solid. It was almost as much a statue as that lizard thing he'd apparently hoodwinked the Arran to digging up. I slipped a hand into the pocket. I already knew. I'd seen something in it before. When we first found it opened, I should have felt it by now. It was gone. The book, or whatever it was missing. I sat back on my haunches and considered. Anyone could have taken it technically. I felt like I knew who the culprit was. Yeah, Jesus Christ. An explosion of agony shot through my eye, the most intense I'd ever felt in my life. I toppled back, clutching my eye. This wasn't even like a thunderclap. It felt like someone had driven a red-hot spike directly through my optic nerve and into my brain. Drool leaked from my mouth as I curled up. Didn't even have the strength to reach my eye drops. Even if I did, the pain was so great I doubt I'd be able to pry open my eyelid. There was a noise. A voice? Had someone followed me? Garrett! I think I was screaming, I couldn't tell. Part of me wanted to rip my eye out of its socket if it had been even a minuscule amount of relief. I felt a hand touch me and I finally managed to open my eye. Someone was there. Had Stefan come to find me? Tears poured down my cheeks and blurred my vision. Fuck, that hurts! I could barely get the words out, the agony was so great. I wanted to tell him to get my proxy in my pocket, but... Connor? The figure moved like a greasy oil slick across my vision, getting closer, threatening to envelop me. You did this to me! You fucking took my eye, you son of a bitch! His form seemed to swim before me. It must have been the tears of agony filling my eyes. But I didn't care because I knew it had to be him. I wanted to hurt him. I wanted to fucking hurt him. Cold. So cold. But the pain was gone. And yet I felt empty. Spent. I forced open my eyes. I couldn't see anything. It was just pitch black. I could smell. And I knew what scent I was detecting. That was when I noticed the figure lying next to me. An unmoving figure. My eyes adjusted to the darkness and the figure. Oh God. Suddenly the fear energized me and I scrambled to my knees. It wasn't just the scent, it was the taste. I couldn't feel any pain, which meant... I heard paw steps thundering closer, the sound of familiar voices calling out. I stood, my legs like jellies. I staggered back, away from the figure on the ground. My hands were sticky. I could taste metal whenever I swallowed. It was on my face. Fuck, it was in my mouth.
Who's there? Who is...
Garrett? Jesus, what? Oh my God! Gale! That was the latest update of Polar Night. Wow, things are really getting interesting here. What happened on the Arran? What's going on now? So many questions, which we will get answered eventually. Well, I can't tell you them now. I have no clue. But I hope you enjoyed that one. That was quite the long video. It took me 2 days to record this one, actually. And yeah, that was excellent. So I'm looking forward to the next one. And don't forget you can support Polar Night on Patreon. I'll put a link in the description if you'd like to do that. It's a great VN. And speaking of Patreon, thank you to all my people on Patreon, all my supporters there, including my top supporters: Omar, Rafu, Spiderling, Smuto, Tiger Cub, Amaterasu, Alan Mayer, Greylock, Hyperdefined, Mark Uskerton, Gracious Yevon, Matt Kenya, Kartek, Evan King, Harvest Mouse Productions, Grizz, Exact, Dissonance, Cobus Visser, Ryan Hall, Bieka, Bastian, Aaron Fox, and Andy Peng. You are very much all appreciated. And we're going to stay in a more horror theme for next week. We are returning to Burroughs and Mark's Route, and then we'll be having a complete change of mood as we get Tennis Ace back going again, and some point next week or two we'll be having more Brock the Investigator during the week. I'm not quite sure when, depends on my schedule, but that will definitely be coming up. But for now, this has been Polar Night. I've been Blythe Fluid. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.